I'm going to wait for a little bit. Oh, there we go. Sophia, do you have any comments for this morning?
No, just same as you. Kind of welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in for day two. It's nice to have everyone kind of tuning in today as well. Yesterday was a really great day, so hopefully today will be equally as useful for everyone. And yeah, I'm excited to listen into the talks today. I think they're really great. And we've got a really diverse kind of mix of people from all kind of parts of the industry today. So that's very exciting. Yeah, so just really excited to have everyone here.
I'm going to wait for a little bit. Oh, sorry if you heard that. That was YouTube. Behind.
That was really
Okay. No, that's great. Okay, I think it's a little bit early, but we've got quite a few students in. So should we pass over to you, Clemens?
I mean, if you want to start, but I'm happy starting at 10 if
Okay.
people are joining at 10. Your call. I do whatever you prefer.
I think let's wait a bit. Do you know what? To take on the 4 minutes, how about you students? Do you want to put in the chat where you're studying at the moment, what you're studying, so we can get an idea of what our audience are about?
Yeah, and let us know if you joined us yesterday or if you're kind of just joining us today. And just remember to get your questions in because, yeah, obviously our speakers would love to take your questions, kind of just to get the most out of today's student conference and today's talk. And a lot of the speakers also have like LinkedIns and Twitters that you can reach afterwards. So like if there are any questions or if you do want to reach out to them, I think I can kind of speak for all of them in the sense that they're here to help. So, you know, they want to be useful, so just kind of make the most out of it really. And yeah, you can use our kind of Q&A option here to get your questions throughout the talk if there's anything you think of, and then we'll answer it, or our speakers will answer it at the end of their talk. So yeah, that's just a little reminder there.
So I actually have one more thing. If you're not following the Ukie student account on Twitter, I'm going to put it in the chat. Do follow us, just so you know what events are coming up. Obviously, if you are a member already, you'll be getting it through a monthly newsletter, but just keep your eye out on that. We should have a Game Jam and another conference later this year, which would be really useful. Again, it's all about getting as much information as you can to give you the tools for when you enter the industry. It's a great industry to be part of, by the way. I was very lucky enough to go to the BAFTAs Game Awards last night. And yeah, I must say, it was a fantastic evening. Just a little boast, sorry. I'm still very, very happy that I went. So we'll do like an intro for Clemens. So thanks for joining us. And Clemens is a senior programmer at nDreams, and he is going to be chatting about Unreal coding, things you learn the hard way, which will actually be quite an interesting one indeed. So Clemens, I think I'm going to pass it to you. I think we've got a good amount of students here. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Let me share my screen. I guess this should be it. Right. Give me a moment, please. There we go. All right. So, hi. My name is Clemens Scharfen. I'm a senior programmer at nDreams, and we implement fun games on various platforms with Unreal Engine 4. So today I want to share some of the things I've learned in the, let's say, past 2 years. It was not always easy for me, but before I do so, I want to make clear who this talk is for, so you don't waste your time by watching it. And my click does not work. There we go. So who is this talk for? This is not the how to get started with Unreal Engine 4 talk. this is the talk after the one. For those people who started with Unreal Engine 4, fell into a pitfall, got bit by a snake, running out of oxygen. I mean, those people who try to survive the Unreal Space Jungle. It is made for students, for graduates, for entry-level programmers who are already working with Unreal Engine 4. So as I'm a programmer, this is for programmers. If you are a designer or a technical designer, I might have one or the other tip for you. If you're an artist, I'm really sorry, mate, but you might not enjoy this talk. By the way, isn't it epic timing that Unreal Engine 5 got released 3 days before I have my talk about Unreal Engine 4? So is this talk already obsolete while I do it and while you're listening to it? Luckily not. Unreal Engine 4 will not vanish overnight. People or studios are finishing their game with Unreal Engine 4 and they support the games after launch. So the transition will take several years. Plus, some of the things I share with you about Unreal Engine 4 might still be valid for Unreal Engine 5. What is this talk about? Before I joined nDreams, I was a Unity developer for many years. And so you can imagine that I learned a lot when I joined this company. And after a month or so, Tammy, who is nDreams CPO, she came to my desk and asked me to write down my learning experience, because you learn things only once, most of the times. And I did write that down. And about half a year later, I published my knowledge internally in a wiki. And since then, colleagues have learned from this knowledge base and contributed to it. So it's growing. And now I have the honor to share some of this knowledge with you. As this is a students' conference, I try to keep it basic, but hopefully still interesting. This segues directly into my first tip. It is, so to say, unrelated, excuse the pun. Please become a knowledge sharer. If a problem takes you hours or even days to be solved, and you find a solution, please consider sharing it with your colleagues, or if possible, even publicly, for example, in a blog or so. It takes you 10 minutes to write it down, but it might save others days to find out the exact same thing. And I'm not sure if one should say that during a pandemic, but knowledge is like a virus. It becomes more if you spread it. I want to go even one step further. It does not only help your company and your colleagues if you share your knowledge, it might even help your future self. Funny story. Several years ago, I was confronted with a technical problem, and I know exactly that I have solved this problem before, but I couldn't recall how. So of course, I was searching the internet for it, found the exact question with a nice answer, code example, well explained. In a nutshell, it solved my problem. And then I saw the author of this answer, and it was myself 2 years before that. So believe it or not, this is a true story and actually happened. All right, the things I'm going to share with you are an excerpt of the nDreams knowledge base that we started. And so I want to use the opportunity here to thank my colleagues who contributed to this database, and therefore giving me the options to talk about this with you. I will talk about basic things, literally, the isValid talk, the isValid node, or the isValid check. I will talk about ticking. I will give you some blueprint tips and talk about some pitfalls. And I will also talk about linker errors. This seems to be a little bit like more advanced, but don't you worry, it's all basic. Let's start with the isValid check. When working in C++ and in Unreal, one of the first things everyone will learn is that you need to do null pointer checks. They are vital. Basically, if you don't do null pointer checks, the crash comes guaranteed. So a basic tip is whenever you're dealing with a U object, use isValid instead. The difference is isValid does not only check for a null reference, it also checks if the member variable is about to be garbage collected. And not using isValid might lead to random crashes at some point. and they are hard to reproduce and therefore sometimes hard to find. Also, here's another micro tip. I think most of you will know the approach how to check is valid in blueprints, but I'm not sure if everyone knows how to do a validated get. If you have an actor reference or a U object reference, you can right-click this in Blueprint and convert it to validate get, and this is just much cleaner. Let's talk about ticking. Whenever I speak to more unexperienced Unreal developers, I very often hear things like ticking is bad, it costs performance, it needs to be avoided, but does it? Is it really? I like to use this opportunity to demystify this a little bit. Whenever an actor or actor component needs to do something every frame, it needs to tick. If it doesn't need to do something every frame, it doesn't need to tick. And of course, there's an exception to this. Some things need to tick sometimes, and there's an option to enable or disable tick based on your needs. Let me give you an example. If you work in a Minecraft style game, you might have thousands of cubes around you. And if all of them are ticking, but they are not doing anything, but just waiting to be basically destroyed, right? And you disable tick in this cube class, you might save one or the other frame or FPS, you might gain some performance. However, if you're working on a game that only has several actor instances at a time, and some stuff is ticking although it shouldn't, well, of course you can disable it. It will be better practice. Will it gain you some performance? Probably not. However, this is just a rule of thumb. Whenever you have a performance issue, check the profiler, find the bottleneck. An interesting takeaway about ticking is that actor tick is independent from an actor component tick. This means just because you disable the tick on the actor doesn't mean that all the attached actor components don't tick. They tick individually based on their tick setting. Let's talk about blueprints. By the way, before I get into actual blueprint tips and pitfalls, have you ever come across, that's not a question, I'm sure you have come across this question, hey, I'm a programmer, I want to learn Unreal Engine 5, what shall I learn, Blueprint or C++? I think a lot of people want to know if they really need to learn C++. And basically, yes, you can do that with Blueprint. You can do everything with Blueprint. The role in a professional environment is called technical designer. It's a fun job. However, from my perspective, when I Googled this several years ago, I didn't know if I need to learn C++ because I have a C++ background. I wanted to know if I can get rid of this strange monocolor scripting language. And I tried it, and believe me, it's not fun. I think at some point in your learning curve, you need to admit if you're a programmer, you need to use both. I mean, if I build something in Lego, I want to use all the bricks, not only the blue ones, right? Anyway, let's call about the debugging. I'm sure you know that the shortcuts for debugging in the Blueprint editor are the same as in Visual Studio. There's F9 to create and remove a breakpoint, F10 to step over one, F11 to step into, Shift F11 to step out of it. There's basically everything but resume. And I honestly don't know why this isn't the default setting. It should be a 5, in my opinion. Good news is there are some settings. Go to Editor Preferences, use the search bar for resume, and put in a 5 for the resume simulation, and problem solved, basically. Also, if you have never done that, look through the keyboard shortcuts or use the search bar. You will be amazed what you can set. Let's talk about Blueprint pure functions. Regarding the Unreal documentation, Blueprint pure functions promise not to modify any state and are automatically executed when the data relying on them is required. Right, what does that mean? Well, if you have an impure function, it's always executed when you use the execution pin, which is the white one. And whenever you take the return value, this is a cached value. so it's not executed again. However, if you're working with pure functions, they are always executed when you use the execution pin. A while ago, excuse me, a while ago, a colleague came to me with a blueprint bug, and we digged into his code, and it actually looked quite clean. But while debugging and while looking into it, we found out that he used a pure function. He implemented it himself that returned a random array index. And although he was using the node only once, he was using the output pins multiple times. And that means it returned a different random index whenever the pin was used. So it was not the behavior he expected. The solution was rather easy. We replaced the pure function by an impure one. Mistakes like this happen quite easily. So I recommend to always make pure functions in C++ const. This is not a requirement by the blueprint pure specifier, but you should do that. Also, do only light things like getters. Don't do heavy calculations, because as I said, whenever you use a pin, this calculation needs to be done again and again. The result isn't stored or cached. Also, as you learned from my example, do not use random or time-based calculations in a pure function. Make sure it always returns the same result. Here's another pitfall. As you all know, the do once node comes very handy, well, if you want to do something only once. I shot myself into the foot by using do once within a function, and I was wondering why the code was executed always. Whenever I called the function, it passed the do once every time. And to understand this, we need to look into the do once node. The do once is a macro, and if you look into it, you see that there's an anonymous local Boolean variable. It's commented with is closed. And what this means is the macro code is replaced, or the node is replaced by its macro code, right? So if you do that in an event graph, this is fine. The local Boolean becomes something like a member variable, a state variable. But if you do that in a function, you have a local function variable, which is reset or actually initialized every time you call the function. So long story short, to avoid a pitfall like this, use state holding member variables instead. I used b is initialized as an example, just you know what I mean. Also, in general, avoid the do once node. Why do I say avoid? Even if you know how the do once node works and where you can use it and where not, doesn't mean that a reader is aware of this. So in order for best practice, if you use a state member variable instead, and don't use the do once node, it makes your code easier to read. Also, do not use do once in functions, except you know exactly what you're doing. This is the last one, the last section, linker errors. I can remember when I was a student and I began to learn C++, I'm sure most of you had a similar experience. If you learn C++, you're confronted with code that never wants to compile. And whenever you have finally solved the stupid typo that caused the compile issue, you are suddenly confronted with a linker error. And you have weird symbols and strange names, and it was intimidating at that time. And it took me a while to understand the concept of linking. Once you get that, it's quite straightforward to resolve. And especially in Unreal Engine 4, it's very easy to resolve linker errors in most of the times. Because Unreal Engine handles the generation of the Visual Studio Solution files, which makes it easy for developers as long as they know one or the other thing about the build system. If you're confronted with a linker error in Unreal Engine 4, it's very likely that it is one of the following three reasons. I will start with the simplest one. A running game. Sometimes you compile your Unreal project while the game is still running. This can be the case for several reasons. For example, if you use PIE, play in editor, or the editor runs in -game mode, so you started it with the command line, or the game runs as a server, and in this case, it might be a logging server that has a command line open, or it can be a non-logging server, which is basically a process in the background, and you cannot even see anything. So if you compile your project while the game is running, this will cause a link error because the DLL is blocked. And the solution is rather simple. Stop the game or the process if you can't see any window or the Unreal Engine is closed anyway. Look into the task manager. If you can find something, close it. Funny question. Have you ever had a linker error? And after rebooting your PC, the error was magically gone? Yeah, now you know why. Another reason for linker errors might be a missing dependency. What does this mean? First of all, you need to know that everything in Unreal Engine is a module. The editor is a module. Every plugin, no matter if it's an engine plugin or a game plugin, is a module. And your game yourself, the game project, is a module as well. At the end of the day, all modules are DLLs, so dynamic linked libraries, and they need to be linked together to build the game. In order for Unreal to know which DLLs or modules are needed for the game, they need to be specified in the project's build.cs file. And the build.cs file helps to generate the solution file. Why am I telling you this? If you're including a header from a module that is not yet declared as a dependency in your build.cs, you will get a linker error. There's an easy fix. Add the module you need to the build.cs. How do you know what the needed dependency is? Well, there are two options. First of all, you can find the class. I selected UDynamicMesh as an example here in the Unreal documentation, and it tells you what the module name is. And it tells you also the header you need to include or the include path. There's another way. If you have a source header file, for example, from the engine source or plugin, look at the path of this file, because the path tells you everything you want to know. In this case, after runtime, it tells you the module name, which is Geometry Framework, and after public, it tells you the path. There might be subdirectories. In this case, it's just udynamicmesh.h. Last one. When you're working on a plugin, make sure that you always use the module name API macro. In our case, this is Ukie project_API, this macro. The macro makes it possible to link and therefore use this class in another module, for example, in your game if it's a plugin. Luckily, if you generate classes by the Unreal editor, they will make it in a correct way. They use a template, it will be fine. However, if you write the class yourself or you copy the code from somewhere, and you might even miss the macro at all, or it might be the wrong one, and this leads to a link error. However, very easy to resolve. If a link error refers to your class, just check if the module name API is correct. And with these three tips, you basically have a very good foundation of fixing most of the linker errors you're confronted with in Unreal Engine 4. That's already the end of my presentation. I hope it contained one or the other takeaway for you. This was just a small excerpt from our knowledge base. And although I don't want to become this, I don't want this to become a marketing performance, I have to say that nDreams is really a lovely company. It truly cares about their employees, about us, and it invests in our education. Plus, if you work with us, you have full access to our knowledge base. However, if VR isn't your thing, no hard feelings. I'm sure you can learn all the things yourself the hard way. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Clemens, for that really interesting talk. So if anybody has any questions, now's your time to pop them in the chat or the Q&A for Clemens to answer. I guess while we're waiting for any questions, I guess, could you talk a little bit about like the opportunities with nDreams? Do they have kind of student opportunities or graduate kind of schemes, or maybe even internships that students can get involved with?
Yes, they do. So we have absolutely everything, all of that. We provide internships, we provide graduate roles, we have junior roles, I'm actually the wrong person to ask, but please have a look at our website and we have open positions, or just get in touch. HR is really, they are lovely people. They will very likely respond to you and give you more details if you have any questions, or just try to apply.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's really reassuring, and good for our students who I'm sure are looking for opportunities and internships in every corner of the industry right now. Brilliant. Okay, so any questions, anyone, just pop them in the chat now. Doesn't look like we have anything.
There we go.
So question is, thanks for the information. Do you have any tips on making C++ more easily accessible for blueprint use? I've found that the meta tooltip tag and certain style comments can help display information about the code in the blueprint editor, but I do not know if it's the best way to do it.
Well, in general, if you work with U properties and the option that, so what I do very often is I Google or search the internet for specifiers, for the U property specifiers, and many of them aren't actually documented, but you can find them in source. So I recommend you two things: read source, read other people's projects if you want, especially you talked about the meta tag, right? Find this in the source where it's applied, for example, in the engine source, in the editor itself, or if other people's projects, have a look there. Just experiment with this. This very much increases the usability and about within the editor. So yeah, we use that. It's a very helpful tool. I can recommend you using the meta tags as well. Also, if it's sometimes quite hard to find out what is there, but the source is a good point to find those.
Thank you, and thanks for your question, Alvaro. Very good question. Okay, cool. So if there's any more questions, this is your last chance to pop them in the chat. Oh,
We've actually got a question in the Q&A. I think, yes, no, there is a question in there. Thanks for the excellent talk. These are really general questions, haha, but what is the favorite part of your job? And throughout your career, what impact do you want the company you work for to have on the industry?
Okay, that's two questions. What is my favorite part of the job? I think I enjoy very much technical problems. So I see a problem, I want to find a solution. I don't want to do the monkey typing work all day. I like to be challenged sometimes, and that's very enjoyable for me. Also, I think working in the games industry is grateful in general, because basically, whenever you have a project that is about to release, you can talk about it and you can see that people just love this, and it's just very satisfying to tell them, hey, I've worked on this game, I did this and that, and it's just amazing, right? The hard part about this is there's a long period of time where you cannot talk about your projects because it's under NDA and you have to wait until it's released. So it might be 1 or 2 years, but still very cool. The second question was, sorry, can you repeat that again?
So the second question, what impact do you want the company you work for to have on the industry?
The impact. So I see that Unreal already does that. They try to basically spread knowledge and give opportunities to everyone. That means also, for example, if you did not study, you have still a chance to work here if you're motivated, if you have good values. I like that and I appreciate that very much. And I think this is, I see with some meetings I'm in, this is in progress. This is already there a little bit, and this is constantly improved. So basically making the game industry accessible and sharing knowledge. I think that's a good path.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, got a note there from absolutely. That's really interesting. Thank you very much from Gordon. Brilliant. Okay, cool. No, wonderful. Really, really great questions there. Any last questions before we wrap up? I see you've you put your email there, Clemens, which is great. So I'm assuming if any students have any follow-up questions from your talk, then they can reach you via that email.
Absolutely, write me an email.
Are you on LinkedIn or Twitter as well?
I am on LinkedIn. I have a Twitter profile, but it's very inactive. So LinkedIn is your best chance. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So you can all, yeah, as I say, if you have follow-up questions for Clemens or you'd like to reach out, he's popped his email there, and you can also find him on LinkedIn. So that's great. I think that kind of concludes the talk. Thank you so much for hopping on here, Clemens, and talking about.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Clemens.
All right.
I think since we've got a bit of time, should we go through today's schedule?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Let me share my screen and I'll let everyone have a look. Oh, that's a cool photo of Clemens.
It's our Dreams picture. So basically,
Amazing.
everyone who joins the company gets a silly headset. You can select a variety of 20 headsets or so, and you can have a picture.
That's awesome. So you know what? I nearly forgot how to share my screen. It's the most easiest thing to do. Okay, so everyone can see the schedule, yeah? So we've got Michael Killick, as I said earlier on, that is going to be a recording, which I'll start at 10:30. We got Deborah Farley from UK Games Talent and Finance, so the Transfusia, they're going to have a chat with you guys. Naveen, so from Dreams. Clemens has just spoken from Dreams, so we're lucky to be joined by them twice. A day in the life of a QA. And then we got Paul Franks from Coots with a very blunt title, Get a Real Job. And then we've got Kim from OPM Jobs. So they're a recruitment agency that specialize in the games industry. So I think that's going to be quite a good connection to have. Obviously, when you get out there looking for a job after your studies. And their topic is how not to get a job in the games industry. I've seen their talks before, and she is quite entertaining. She'll tell you a few good stories of what people have done in the past, a few shocks. But yeah, definitely learning throughout the day. It's quite a variety of topics today, which is good. So hopefully you guys take a lot from it. But we've got about 2 minutes until the next video. Well, I say video recording. So I see as well, I had a blonde moment, and earlier on when I mentioned to follow Ukie students to find out our future events, I actually sent it to the hosts and panelists, which is absolutely useless. So there you go. There's Ukie students' Twitter name. So please do follow us. As I said, we've got a game jam and conference very, very soon. And then as well as the next conference will probably be on site. So normally we'll have two, one way up in the north and then one more south. So to accommodate everyone. So hopefully there's one of them will be near you guys. Okay, so I'm going to start the video. So I've got to share a screen again. Boop, boop. Lovely. So here you go.
Hello, and welcome to the Careers, Game Design and Games and Education presentation. My name is Michael Killick, and I'm a Games Development Lecturer and Course Lead for Level 3 Games Development in Cambridge and the Head of Rising Games. As well as being a Video Games Ambassador, I'm also a BAFTA Young Games Designer 2021 nominee for the work that I do with young and upcoming game designers. It's my job to work with budding new game designers to show them what they need to know to create their first video games and how they can publish these to console and mobile markets. I work with many talented young game designers who are looking to make their first step into the games industry. I've been teaching games development for just short of 10 years now, and the course I run provides students with a chance to begin their first steps into becoming a games designer. They get the chance to work with myself, the amazing team that I work with, and to develop and create their first video games for the global stage. We dealt with mobile design and now console development using Xbox. This is through our publishing company, Rising Games UK. My students have been able to take part in a range of projects that have allowed them to explore different games and methods of creating video games. They also get the chance to work with other like-minded game designers to publish their first video games through our educational company, Rising Games, and a little bit more on that shortly. This is a springboard for budding games designers to exhibit their skills and show the world what they've been creating during their time with me on the course. They also get to work with the likes of iOS Marketplace, Google Play, itch.io, and Xbox while gaining an education. As you can probably tell, I love what I do. I began my journey similar to how you might start yours. I was a young games designer who wanted to know more about the gaming world and how I could create projects that people would enjoy. I created and released my own mobile projects while I was at college and had the unique opportunity to attend E3 in Los Angeles, the biggest gaming expo in the world, to exhibit the games on the main stage with the likes of Nintendo, PlayStation, Microsoft, and many more global giants. I then wanted others to have the same experience and opportunities that I had, which is why I wanted to get into teaching and share my knowledge and experience with others that wanted to create their own games. Since then, I've met and worked with a VP of Sony PlayStation, developed console games, taken part in a many number of expos for students and indie companies, worked with a range of different global games companies, and also been nominated for a BAFTA in my role in mentoring those that want to pursue a career. I'm now writing my first game design book to help share with others on how to create their first games. I now have the best job in the world, where I get to teach and inspire the next generation of designers and how to be part of bringing their projects to life. Being part of a journey for a student and seeing their efforts and creativity develop over time is something truly special and is incredibly rewarding. But enough about me. Now is your chance to know a bit more about the world of games and how they can make an impact on your life and future. When it comes to video games and education, they really can be used as a force for good. They provide a framework for students to learn and develop basic soft skills for careers and beyond. Although it's great to spend your time working on games and your skills in your free time, being able to pursue your passion within video games at a college level is the perfect way to kickstart your career and to begin developing your portfolio. As previously mentioned, I'm the head of Writing Games, and we provide students with a perfect opportunity to give the students a simulation of what it's like working for a company, working towards deadlines, and preparing projects for release. With this, it provides them with the basic skills to not only help them towards their games, but to help them within their pathway of education and career. You can also see just a handful of companies on the screen that we've worked with and who have directly supported our students and provided them with opportunities. And as our company grows, we hope to work with more industry professionals to give our students the chance to chase their passions. And all of this has been down to the force that video games have. For example, in 2018, 2 of my students were shortlisted for a BAFTA for their games that they've been developing during their time on the course. Although they may not have won the competition, certainly lots of doors were open for them due to their efforts. They've also taken part in exhibiting at a range of expos such as Apps World in 2015, a host of different EGX Race expos, and E3 as well, and so many more. It's known that games make more money than Hollywood, amassing to billions of pounds. But all of the expos, conferences, and talks, etc., have all come from games and education. Even if not be directly taught as a subject, the passion or skills are birthed from education. It's now created a life force for the industry that provides a gateway for young people to chase their dreams of becoming the next game designer, tester, programmer, concept artist, or more. As I've been saying, all of this has been through the use of video games. So if your parents have ever said to you, don't play video games, otherwise you're going to end up with square eyes, you can now say that playing games is somewhat good for you. So yes, they really can be a force for good. From FIFA to Final Fantasy, Mario Kart to Minecraft, video games have played a huge role in many of our lives. Christmas mornings were spent unwrapping, loading up and getting to know the next best game of that year. Coming on leaps and bounds in the past few decades, video games have gone from a niche hobby to a multi-billion-pound industry of simulation, machine learning and artificial intelligence and so much more. Fast more than a pastime, video games have become a social way of life for people of all ages, and now is your chance to become part of this ever-growing industry. As you can see on the screen, these are just a small number of roles within the industry that you can find yourself in if you wish to pursue a career in games. Most will require you to create a portfolio to exhibit your skills and work that you've been creating, but some will also require for you to look for a degree within your specialist field. This is something that's usually strongly desired, but plenty of university courses are out there to help you assist in finding the right direction for your career path and to help you with developing your skills further. Aside from going indie and making your own games, a lot of developers are also willing to hire a designer if they simply show that they're capable of making games. But like I said, a degree is always desired and is sometimes required depending on the role you wish to pursue. That being said, there's no better way to learn the ins and outs of being a game designer than by going through a good program. Most schools have great courses that teach you how to use the software, give you hands-on learning, or even help you make your first game before you graduate. Also, having a game design degree or something similar will usually increase your chances of getting your application looked at when you shoot your CV to a games company. It's hard to believe after the North American video game crash of '83, thousands of developers lost their job and almost every store refused to sell anything related to games. Then along came a Japanese company called Nintendo to rekindle the fire with a Nintendo Entertainment System coupled with Super Mario Bros. Now fast forward today and you're looking at a powerful industry that rivals that of even Hollywood and television. This means that you don't have to worry about switching fields or learning something else anytime soon. With more people playing games than ever before, thanks to Facebook, social media and smartphones, the number of gamers is only going to keep going up. All those gamers are going to need passionate designers to create awesome experiences for them. So if you love the idea of creating characters, worlds, gameplay for people to enjoy, then being lucky enough to land the role of a game designer somewhere means that you'll be doing what you love for a living. The good news is that the pay and benefits designers at most studios is pretty good, and even great depending on where you work, your experience, etc. Of course, most would advise against jumping into the industry simply for the money. Instead, most development studios are filled with people who simply have a desire for their own creativity towards making games for others. So you're still with me? That's great. Then you obviously want to know more. It's no secret that the gaming industry is getting more and more competitive. Thousands of college students graduate every year, which means more people will apply to the same positions as you do. The truth is, not everyone lands a job at the game studio of their dreams straight away. But the great thing is about being a designer is that you can do what countless others have done, make your own games. The indie scene has been exploding for years now, which means big opportunities for designers to create their own projects or join a small team of fellow indie developers. It may not be the most financially stable route to take, but unlike other graduates struggling today, at least you'll be staying afloat with gaining experience with what you actually want to do. The average game designer with years of experience will tell you that if you can't come up with ideas to make a game fun, then you don't have what it takes to make a game, to become a game designer. While the truth of a game designer is to entertain, these days it's so much more than being a game for people. The games designers of today are providing a positive impact by crafting experiences to help with weight loss, depression, stress, anxiety, and so much more. Video games are also being used to train soldiers, help children learn in school, and even help astronauts prepare for space missions. It's nice knowing that games, which were once only seen for children by most, are now being used to improve the world and assist individuals in overcoming a challenge. If there's one thing to expect is to have challenge as game designer is your creativity. That is because the designer is a machine of the team, which means others are counting on you to come up with exciting ideas. If there's one thing you can expect to have challenge as a game designer, it's your creativity. That is because the designer is the idea machine of the team, which means others are counting on you to come up with exciting, unique concepts for artists, programmers to bring to life. Of course, they'll be expecting good ideas no matter what happens. Of course, they'll be expecting good ideas and not whatever pops into your head first. You'll definitely be tapping into your creativity when decisions need to be made concerning sudden changes or when a mechanic needs to be tweaked or removed entirely. The game designer is often seen as the problem solver because they must come up with good ways to work around necessary changes while keeping the core of the game intact and fun. Any game designer who says they never brag about their job is probably lying through their teeth or very drunk. There are few things cooler than being able to say that you make games for a living, especially when today almost everyone who plays games either is on a PC, console, or smartphone. There's nothing more satisfying than hearing other people talk about your game and mentioning to you that you actually helped make it. You'll also get respect from fellow game developers since they know more than anyone about the responsibility that comes along with being a designer. Programmers, artists, writers, and other people involved in the development process certainly have important roles. but there's just something about the title of games designer that just feels right to someone who grew up playing games. One of the perks of being a designer is the opportunity to spend a lot of time getting paid to play games. This usually involves the game you're actually designing to find the bugs, test new gameplay mechanics, and see how it feels. If you're working on a big title at a notable studio, you'll often be the first to check out other areas of the game you're not necessarily working on, such as multiplayer. Aside from games, you'll be working on or also getting other titles for the purpose of studying and analysing them. Aside from the games you'll be working on, you also get to play other titles for the purpose of studying and analysing them. You'd be surprised at how many designers have gained inspiration from their own unique ideas while also playing other companies' successful titles. Checking out other games to see what works and what doesn't is one of the most useful things to do as a games designer. Being a designer means working with other people who grew up with games and love them enough they want to make them for a living. Since the game development process is very reliant on teamwork and cooperation, you most likely have a good time getting to know other passionate gamers while working on other designers to make a great game. The best part about working at a game studio is that everyone has their own unique taste when it comes to games. You may have grown up and gone to college with friends who are all about a specific genre, but now you're enjoying hearing other people talk about why they love other types of games so much. It's also satisfying that as a designer that you have a team of people who are also having a good time, helping to make our ideas into reality. So where do we start? Whether it is on a screen or something we play with friends on a playground, or games are all around us. We all know big titles such as God of War, Fortnite, FIFA, Uncharted, Pokemon, etc. But where does the ideology come from? Scott Rogers theorized it perfectly in his book, Level Up. And I'll share that theory with you now by taking the game of bouncing a ball against a wall. You only need one player for handball, but where is the conflict the player should face during this? But to anyone else, you just look like someone who's bouncing a ball against the wall. Let's face it, we've all had that one grown up that says, why are you wasting your time on video games? Until you explain to them why you're doing it. But when you start to add rules and objectives to it, it becomes less of a time waster. A rule might be that you throw with one hand and you have to catch it with the other and try not to drop it. Then you start to add lives into the mix. Then you can start to add a victory condition by catching the ball a certain number of times in a row. A failure would be if you violated the rules that you created. When you created these rules and objectives, a game has been created. So now we can ask the basic question. What is a game? Well, a game is an activity that requires at least one player, has rules, and has a win or lose condition. And that's it. Now you know what it is to make a game. But even if you follow the basic fundamentals of what a game is that we've just spoken about, we can now start to look into further rules, objectives, and conflict. So rules, broadly speaking, define game objects and concepts. Objects like a deck of cards, draw pile, weapons are the building blocks of each of these systems upon which the rest of the design depends. Other rules limit player limit and forbid reactive events. For example, if you have a king and you're asked for one and you have to give it up, you can't keep it, or you're breaking the rules of the game. When it comes to objectives, a core element of these is incorporation of them. Goals that must be met in order for the game to be successfully achieved. In Go Fish, if the goal of the player is to make the most books. In Tag, the goal is to avoid whoever is it for as long as possible. In Hearthstone, the goal is to be the first player to reduce the other player's health to 0. When it comes to conflict, all games embody a contest of powers. The contest comes in many forms, from cooperation to competition, from solo conflict within a game system, or luck to multiplayer social conflict. Conflict is central to all games. So can you think of a game that does not have any of these elements? What happens if you remove them? Are you still playing a game? One of my favourite areas within video games is looking at level design. A key feature of level design, you will need to demonstrate your understanding of how to create fun levels to help the player move from the start of the game to their main objective. This is key to be able to achieve the fun element of your game and what will make your game engaging compared to others. There's a fantastic quote that I've heard online. I can't remember who it was from, but when we make noise and we fail to see a pattern in it, we get frustrated and we give up. But once we see a pattern, we delight in tracing it and seeing it reoccur. So here are 10 principles that you need to consider when designing a good level. It needs to be fun to navigate, does not rely on words, tells what to do but never how to do it, constantly teaches, surprising, empowers the player, has a range of difficulty to it, is efficient, creates emotion, and driven by mechanics. By considering the above, you'll be able to create something enjoyable for the player. Now think about a game that you felt had effective level design. Do you think they follow the principles above? Do you think there's something that you could have done to make it more fun? What made that level enjoyable for you? Another fantastic quote here I'd like to share with you, actually. Again, I'm not too sure who said it, but you're told to generate the next big hit. The game that will take off and capture the imaginations of players all around the world. You look to your sketchbook, ready to create, and you draw a blank. Countless ideas flood to you every day, but now, when it matters most, it's gone. We've all suffered from the experience in the past, and if you haven't already, you probably will soon. So where can we generate ideas? What can we use to spark our imagination and begin to generate the start of our next design? Inspiration comes from absolutely anywhere and anything. There's always a game to be found in every walk of life. What that game is and how well it's executed, however, is up to you. First of all, remember that no idea will appear fully formed and perfected in your head. Any great work has been thoroughly researched, tested, developed, improved, reviewed, and the process repeated until completed. One of the most creative points you have during the day is just before you fall asleep. That's why it's always handy to keep a notebook near your bedside. You never know what you're about to come up with, or maybe if you're about to come up with the next big hit just before you fall asleep. But here are a couple of places that you can gain inspiration from when coming up with your ideas. Research. Playing a variety of games, you can begin to develop your vocabulary of mechanics, dynamics, and themes that are necessary building blocks of a successful game design. It's important to stay varied in this approach and do not stick to games that you're familiar with or class as your favourite. Explore yourself to many new kinds of games to develop your range of skills and knowledge. Research into how some of these games were made in order to see where their influences came from. Networking. Just like you're doing with these events today, discussing ideas with people around you is an easy way to begin the process. Taking a simple premise of simply communicating your thoughts can not only help you vocalize and think through the idea and the concept, but it allows more ideas to be added in the mix from those around you. You never know what someone can add to the mix if you never ask. And again, similarly to today, looking at experiences. Looking for game ideas in everything you do is a great way to develop your design skills. Consider your everyday life, people you meet, activities you do, and places you go. There is a wealth of inspiration in the world around you. It's your job to make these interesting and engaging experiences. So I want to just leave you with a little bit of advice that I give to my students. I get a lot of students who pitch their ideas to me in the team. Whenever I listen to them, I always try to work out if they're going to meet this theory that I show in my classes. So the best advice I give to my students or anyone who's wishing to get into games is to consider my AAA method. The first one is to be ambitious. Never feel that something is out of your reach. Be sure to keep working hard and push yourself with something you wish to work towards. But with that in mind, you need to ensure that your game and your idea is achievable. Be sure to know where your limits are with time and resources. Sometimes you may need to learn new skills to take yourself further with the projects and with you in life. And lastly, make sure your game is awesome. The most important part of your game is to make sure that you're making something that everyone will love, and most importantly, you. When you're creating your game, be sure to think that this game would be a game that you would play if you saw it on a shop or online. You need to be your game's biggest fan. And also, never scrap or delete any projects you might be working on. Keep everything, as you never know, you may end up coming back to it in the future. Patience and hard work will always pay off. So, the most important thing to remember No matter how big or ambitious your idea may be, show perseverance and keep going. There is no greater feeling than to know that you have overcome something that you have achieved. The most important thing to remember is, no matter how big or ambitious an idea may be, show perseverance and keep going. There is no greater feeling to know that you have overcome something and that you have achieved a goal. Always put your mind to something and to never be afraid to show a creative flair and what it is you are capable of. Greatness comes from small beginnings. So I just want to say thank you for taking part in my presentation and my talk today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have done this. I am aware that there will be a live Q&A online after this. Anyone that'd like to shoot me any questions. I just want to say a huge thank you to Ukie and Ukie Games for allowing me to deliver the talk today. If you do have any questions, as I said, I'll be available on Twitter all day and after the event as well. And you can see my social handle on the screen as well. I look forward to seeing your games in the future. And if there's anyone that ever like to reach out and share some of your work, I'm more than happy to give some advice. I really hope you enjoy the rest of your day and thank you very much. See you soon.
So that was a really interesting talk from Michael Killick, who's a games lecturer and course lead at Rising Games. Rising Games is a company, a games company based in Cambridge Regional College, which is quite interesting. So yeah, you have his details there. So if you want to reach out to Michael, again, he's very open to have any questions, any follow-up questions that you have from the talk, please feel free to reach out to him.
Yeah, I'll put his Twitter in the chat.
Cool. So I think we've got another 10 minutes before our next talk. So don't go anywhere. Next talk is going to be Deborah Farley, who's a head of talent and outreach at Ukie Games Talent and Finance. And she's going to talk about your first steps to running your own indie game studio, which will be great. So I think, Kirsty, we're going to have a 5-minute comfort break. Have your teas, have your coffees, go make yourself something. I think we're going to do the same. And then we'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. And yeah, don't go anywhere.
Hi guys. We're just having a bit of a technical issue with Deborah to join Zoom. So if you can just bear with us for a few minutes, we'll be back once we have sorted it out. Hi, Deborah.
Hey guys, how you doing? Sorry about that. I've never had that happen before. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm logging in, and it's like, oh, I have no idea what I was doing wrong. Apologies.
It's all good. It's a learning curve. I now know that you can make attendees panelists. So.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
that was going to be my next thing. Is like, because I could get to like the screen and I could see Sophia, and I was like, oh, there's nowhere for me to share my screen or anything from the link that initially got sent. So then I was going to say, can you make me a panelist? So that's fine. Excellent, cool. I will just get my screen share up and then make sure that's all good to go. Yeah.
while you do that, hi everyone. Sorry for the delay. So Deborah's joining us. She's from UK Games Talent and Finance. And the topic of her chat is your first steps to running your own indie studio.
Sure. I'll just get my screen share up here, see if this works.
And again, if you've got any questions for Deborah, put it in the chat. If you're watching from YouTube, put it in the YouTube chat. We will be keeping our eye on that. I'm sure Deborah will be kind enough to answer them at the end of her presentation.
Sure. Let's do this here. Share that. Okay, I can get onto the right page here. It'll be good. Right. There we go. Is that good to go? Can you see that, Kirsty? Just make sure that my screen is sharing.
This needs to be in presentation mode, if possible. I'm going to be honest, I haven't used PowerPoint in ages. I'm even struggling. There we go. That looks perfect.
Is that it? Is all good? Okay, are we sliding through there? Excellent. Okay, well, welcome everybody, and thanks for your patience there. You wouldn't have thought that we've all been using Zoom and all these online tools for over 2 years now, but here we are, always some kind of technical issue. But anyway, thanks for joining us. And yeah, I'm here to talk to you today around about the program Transducer that we coordinate. And it's really to help you and to give some kind of context in terms of why would you apply to it. And it's really about helping teams and individuals who are considering about taking their first steps into owning and running their own indie studio. So is if this is something that, you know, you're considering your career, you're considering what's your next steps after university and what you're going to do, then perhaps having your own studio and running your own studio is something that could be a potential thing for you to consider into the mix as well. So with that said, what is the focus of Transducer? It's specifically aimed at graduate teams who are wanting to explore the possibility of running and establishing their own indie development studio. At the end of the program, you may decide that this is something that's maybe not the right fit for you, which is fine. But if you're kind of thinking about it, then it's really something that you could consider applying to just now. Team leaders play a key part in this. So if that is something that a team leader is considering to do, and you think that you have the ability to be a team leader, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on in the presentation, that's something that you could start to think about, and you should really kind of have a desire to think about, oh, actually, yeah, I'm going to set up my own indie studio. So we're looking for people who perhaps have a little bit of entrepreneurial flair, i.e. they're kind of thinking about, well, how could I make this game into something that's a commercial success, or it has some value to it, or we could create a business out of this, or have some kind of monetary process or model behind it. You've got a great game idea that you think, oh, I'd really like to develop this further and see what stage I can take it to and see what's next. Maybe you want to just try and do a fast track way into setting up your own indie studio, and perhaps you're just looking to get some connections into the industry, to make some networks and to see what it's like out there and how other indie studios do it. Then Transducer could be for you. So what is an offer, and how do we help you and your team members to start to kind of look at this process of having your own studio and what that might look like? The program is a summer program, so you have normally around about 3 months, which this year will be running from June 2022 to September 2022. Your team is allocated some funding, which is always nice, and that you get a little bit of money to help you to develop your game IP and to support your team and to participate on the program. So that's £6,000 each selected team will be awarded during the course of the program. Teams can work in a variety of different ways. So whether it's dispersed working, or you're all spread throughout the UK, or whether you're in different places and you're not able to meet together, you could do a mixture of that in a hybrid approach. So perhaps some of the time you're away working separately, and then other times you come together as a team to have meetings. That's fine. Or you could work all together at your selected local hub. So whatever local hub that you are closest to, or that you would like to put an application into, then a majority of them are able to accommodate teams taking part at their local hub. Or perhaps you just have another space where you can all work together. That is all totally fine. We also provide you with a variety of support as you kind of are on this journey in this process. We have a facilitator support. So this is a person who will do some one-to-one sessions with you during the course of the program. They're normally weekly or bi-weekly, and they just talk to you around about how's things going, how's your team getting on, do you have any challenges, have you got any success stories that you'd like to share with us, what's happening with development, all that kind of stuff. And they can share some of their experience because they are from our community of funded companies. So they've already kind of gone there and done it and set up their own indie studio. So they're very versed in terms of some of the things that you need to be aware of and plan for. We also provide a lot of pitch support. So we have an industry expert come in and do some one-to-one support with teams in terms of helping them to develop their pitch. And by that is like something that helps you to communicate your game idea and get people interested in perhaps providing some funding or maybe some publisher support. So that's what we mean by helping with pitch support. We have a Games Biz Academy. So we have created and curated some tools and some talks and some materials together with the specific aim of helping teams as they're on this journey of setting up an indie studio. We invite people along to give talks and to provide some of their experience and inspiration around about setting up your studio. So there's some really good tools there for you to tap into to find out more. We offer a pitch event. So this is an event where everybody comes together and you practice your pitches. We have various different people from industry attend, so you get the opportunity to practice your pitch over and over again and really begin to hone and shape up what your message is. This can be online, it may be online or maybe physical. We haven't quite decided that yet, but we will certainly provide you with some more information closer to the time about that. Everything then comes to a kind of the finale with our showcase, where you will get the opportunity to showcase the game that you've made. And then you also have the chance to pitch for up to £20,000 of the UK Games Fund grant funding. And the purpose of this is to provide you with some further funding to help your team to take this game idea that you developed through Transfuser and hopefully establish your business and get yourself set up and get it into a place that it's shippable, where you'll be able to turn it into commercial product and to get it out there to the world to play it and to experience it. You'll also get some commissioner support at that stage as well. And this person will kind of give you some one-to-one help as you're setting up your company and your studio and provide some kind of help through these next stages. So that's kind of what's offered. What is it that we're kind of thinking of in terms of people or teams or stuff to take part? So we're looking for kind of an entrepreneurial team leader, we call it. So we're needing people who have got that kind of entrepreneurial passion or flair, and they're kind of thinking, oh yeah, I think I'm able to kind of share our vision, i.e. share our game ideas with other people and with my team and bring them along. Really able to communicate that and kind of inspire and put a lot of kind of, I suppose, passion into people about what it is that you're making and your game and your business. You might be able to kind of coordinate resources and kind of networking I've touched on already. Maybe you're a problem solver, you're quite resilient, and you're able to articulate your story. So there's lots of leadership traits and skills that are highlighted and developed as you participate in Transfuser. In the past, our team leaders have said we've had to wear lots of different hats. So not only have they had to perhaps maybe they're a designer or a programmer and work on that element of building the game, but they've also had to go on and create pitch decks or put spreadsheets together or go out to a networking event and meet other people from the industry. So there's lots of different things that you will need to draw on and develop during the course of the program. And we view this as really as an experience and a testing ground for those who are aspiring to be company founders and putting your skills into practice as you look to set up an indie studios. So if you think that you've got some of these kind of traits and skills, then Transfuser could be for you. You also need to gather a team together. So maybe you're already working as a team. Maybe you've been working together on a university project or on a game jam project, or maybe you have come together through another event or circumstance in life. And you think, yeah, we've got a good team here and would be able to work together and really create something. So if this is you, then The criteria for your team to take part is you need to be a graduate. So you need to have graduated from a university course, whether it's an undergrad, whether it's postgrad or master's, and that between the periods of June 2020 and September 2022. So if you're in that sweet spot, then your team and your team members would be able to take part. Team sizes are a minimum of 3 and to a maximum of 6. And we figured out that during the course of the program, this is quite this kind of range is good for teams to take in part in terms of being able to deliver content and the game idea, but also being able to successfully participate in. All your team members would need to have a residential address in the UK, and you'd all need to be able to commit to all of the times and the duration of the project the duration of the program, which is the June to September times. Teams can hire contractors. So a contractor would be somebody who carry out kind of a bespoke piece of work. It's not necessarily something that's production critical, i.e. that it would put the game on the line if it wasn't delivered. There's something that is a smaller piece of work, it's maybe time limited, and that you need to kind of get somebody else in to give you some support to do. These contractors need to meet all of the team criteria as mentioned on the slide. And it's actually the team's responsibility to take care of this contractor. So the team would be needing to cover any expenses of this contractor and also enter into NDA agreements and with the contractor regarding their roles and their responsibilities. So again, if you have contractors, this gives you another idea and way of figuring out about having your own indie studio and getting people involved to make your game as well. So lots of learning all the time. If you're sitting here and thinking, oh, I don't have a team, or we have a team, but we haven't got quite 3, or we need a couple more people to be able to bolster up our team, there is a forum on the Transfuser website. On our Teams board, wherever you can post up the information that you're looking for and that you're acquiring. So if you're an individual who's thinking, yeah, I'd really like to take part in Transfuser, but I don't have a team around me, then let us know, fill in this form, let us know what it is that you've got to offer, and we can post it up on our Teams board. And vice versa, if you're a team who are looking to fill a role, you may be able to find somebody who's looking for something or get in contact with them that way as well. We also have our Discord server, and I'll provide information about how to get that at the end. But the Teams board is found on the Transfuser website. So you've got a great game idea. You've got your team together. You think that you've got the leadership skills to lead that team and coordinate the resources. You've got 3 months in front of you, and you've got some money. So what happens once you're kind of getting your application together and you've got all this and told what will actually happen? We want to help you to build on what you have, and so it's taking the resources that you have and enabling you to start focus on setting up this studio. So we'd be looking to look at, how do your team develop the game idea into something that's playable, so at the showcase you'll have something to showcase off and to develop. How do you articulate your idea and your game IP so that other people get it and perhaps would be interested in playing it and buying it even? And how do you figure out if this game is going to be the next indie hit or commercial success? Are there some tools out there that can help us to identify things like who will play our game? Like, for example, that would be called a target audience. Where do we find them, and how do we tell them about our game? How do we promote our game to them so that they might be interested in it and want to buy it, as I said. So the program will help you to develop that game idea and your team and your IP into the next stage as well. So one of the key things that we support in and as part of this process of developing your game idea is working on a project plan. We encourage teams to start planning their project from the very start. So through your application, we'll be asking you to provide a project plan, having a clear idea about what it is that you want to do and by when. And that will just help you to achieve what your goals are and your aspirations. So you'll need to consider around about the time that you have to participate on the program. So it's roughly around about 12 to 14 weeks. And that time, that might sound like a long time, 3 months sounds like, yeah, it's a reasonable amount of time to work on what we want to do and get our game idea into thing, but it goes super fast. So having a plan, breaking it down piece by piece, team member by team member, day by day, what are we working on, what we're trying to achieve, what's happened, and how has that impacted on our plan going forward? Things always come up, things change. And so having a plan and being able to be flexible and agile to be able to change that is helpful as well. So you know what's kind of going on. You need to think about the scope of your game. And that is in terms of, you know, what is it that we want to showcase off everybody, what do we want to develop, and what do we want to show the world, and have them experience as well. So you need to think about the scope of your game, and compare that to what's the resources we have, what are our team members, how much time do we have, what are our team members' skills, and how are they going to be able to deliver that as well. So helping you to make something that is going to you're going to be able to showcase, it's going to be playable, and it's going to be something that people are going to be engaged in is really important, and having a plan to do that as well. There'll also be times whenever you'll be required to do stuff for the program. So you'll maybe have a facilitator meeting, or you maybe have an event to prepare for, a pitch deck to prepare. There'll be deliverables that we'll request of you. So your whole time won't be completely focused on just solid game dev. So you need to take that into consideration. Also, you need to consider your team members' time commitments. We do request that, and we do recommend that team members work full-time on their projects to enable them to develop something that will be showcaseable. That's a word. So yeah, we do say that we do recommend working full-time during the program is helpful. However, things happen, and perhaps maybe one of your team members will have a family event, or perhaps they might get unwell. So having contingencies in place to think about what's going to happen if this doesn't all go to plan, what's plan B, what's plan C, and what's plan D. So yeah, having a plan really helps you to think about these things and think these things through, so that you will have something to develop at the end, or to deliver at the end. So working on a project plan is really, really helpful. So I've talked a little bit around your team, your project, your game idea. These are all key criteria and key things that you need to think about if you are going to set up an indie studio. And so they're some of the things that we ask for in our application. We ask you to start thinking about, planning for, and gathering information and evidence about. So if you're going to submit an application, we recommend that you go to our website, which is transuser.com, www.transuser.com, and all the information about submitting an application is there. There is a fact sheet, so please download the fact sheet. There is an information video, application information video. It's about 20 minutes long, and it just runs through the different criteria, some of the slides on here, but in a lot more detail, and just giving you some stuff to flesh out your application. There's two parts to the application. One's a written application, and it's about the narrative about you, your team, and your game idea. There's various sections to upload. And you can do this online via the website. You select the local hub that you would like to apply to, or you can apply to us directly, and you fill in the relevant application form based on the local hub or the Apply Direct. There's a couple of documentations, so there's some word limits on that, and you can provide links to previous experience. Again, I won't go into massive detail about all of that. You can find that all out on information on the website. The deadline for that is Tuesday, the 19th of April, 2022, and that's at 12 noon that we want the applications in for. The second part is a pitch video. So we request this to be uploaded to a Dropbox folder after the written applications have been submitted. So this is our first visual impression of you and your team and your idea. So we're looking to be wowed by you, by your game idea, by your team, and we want to have a really nice introduction to you all and put faces to names. So it should be no longer than 2 minutes. It should include all the criteria that we outline across all our documentation. Introduce your team. Perhaps you want to put up some photographs or some videos with your team. We want to see some visual kind of understanding of what it is that you want to try and make. So whether it's some concept art or some art of your game, or perhaps it's some examples of stuff that you've previously worked on, so we can kind of begin to build up a picture of what your style is and what you're able to achieve. Just practically, don't zip the files when you upload them, and it's just standard file format. But again, that's stuff that you can look at on the documentation on the website. The deadline for the pitch video is Tuesday, the 26th of April, and that's 12 noon as well. In terms of kind of just key activities and dates for you, talked about the written and the pitch video. And once the applications close and the pitch videos are submitted, you then go into a period of review. Your application's getting reviewed, and then there's a selection and onboarding process, and that happens between May and June. All teams are emailed with outcome and if they've been successfully selected or not, and that is via email from ourselves, and that normally is around about end of May, beginning of June time. The programme will start in June. We'll have our pitch sessions, which will be in July and August, and then our final showcase in September. Again, the venues for these various things will either be online or it will be physical events as well. So I think I've come to the end of kind of generally what I wanted to share with you. I hope I've sparked a little bit of interest in terms of you considering if having your own indie studio is something that you would like to consider. We would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, there's our contact email address that you can email us on. Please refer to the website in terms of just getting information from there. If you want to, we have a Discord server, which is an application Discord server, and you can get the link to join that on the website as well. So get involved, and we look forward to receiving an application from you.
Thanks, Deborah. One of the biggest scares of being a host is when a speaker is so good at covering all bases that you basically have no questions.
No questions. That's no problem
It's
at
not
all.
the first time you've done this talk, though, is it?
Yeah. It's not our first rodeo.
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. So does anybody have any questions for Deborah? You could just put in the chat for us. It's a really good opportunity. I mean, I think you guys join every single conference, and hopefully that you get a few students out of this, because it is a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very different to probably maybe quite what the majority of the students who will be probably attending this will be thinking about, and hopefully it's something that it'll maybe give them an idea that they maybe have not thought about before. A lot of people are perhaps sitting there going, yeah, I think I want a job in such and such, or I maybe want to go and follow kind of an artist route or programmer route, whatever else. But this is something that if you're in the situation where it's like you're still not quite sure what it is that you want to do, you can hone your skills during the summer. It can certainly get you a lot of experience in terms of creating a game and get you some experience that potential employers may be looking out for. And a lot of our teams, I think we've had over, I would probably say about 600 or 700 students take part during the course of Transfuser. We've been running it for 7 years, and there's each year we have around about 100 students take part, and so the majority of them go on to receive, get jobs, and because they've had the experience of taking part on Transfuser, it really opens a lot of doors for them. So even if you do, as I said at the start, get to the end of the program and think, actually, this has not been for me, there's always an opportunity at the end of it, and you meet a lot of industry experts. I was down at London yesterday at the WASD event, and we had a showcase stand there, and I was just speaking to some of the teams and what they've been up to, and the selected teams, and they've been showing off their games, and they've just been telling us about the contacts that they made through Transfuser is really interesting, and some of them are working for some of the industry folk that they met. They're now kind of working together in different projects. Are like one of the teams is now doing some work for hire for another team from previous years, and so it becomes something that when you come into the industry, you meet people that you will grow up with as well through the industry, and it's the people that you meet on Transfuser will be the people that you'll continue on in your growth and development through the course of your career in the industry. So it really is it's a good opportunity if you're looking to break into the industry in some way or another as well. We would hope that you would go on and want to create a studio, but that doesn't happen for everybody. So just make the most of the opportunity. So my advice.
Let's kind of create the ultimate portfolio. And
yeah, definitely.
Networking is so important. It's a large industry, but at the same time, it's very small.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you just see, you bumping into people that we've seen over the last kind of 7 years come through the program, and it's great. It's really nice. So it's certainly it's a friendly place to be in, and it's a good opportunity to meet new folk as well.
Absolutely. We've had no questions, but as I said, it was such a thorough speak. But yeah, so students, hope that gives you something to think about. Definitely check out the website. And then, yeah, Deborah was kind enough to give you some further contacts if you want to go through. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Deborah.
No problem, thanks, and enjoy the rest of the conference. We'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Deborah.
And the lovely Naveen has arrived in good time.
Hey everyone.
Another person that we had Zoom issues with, hey?
Yeah, I got them sorted in the end.
Yeah, thank God. Oh, goodness, I don't know. You think after the pandemic and everyone going virtual that everyone would have Zoom to, know it to a T, but there's always something that goes wrong. I don't know whether I'm just like silly with IT or whether other people have to deal with this as well.
No, I mean, yeah, technology's always been iffy, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got 2 minutes just to remind people, if you've got any questions for Naveen, to put it into the chat, and after his presentation I'm sure he'll be kind enough to answer them for you. Just a reminder, this is how you get as much as you can out of the conference, is to actually engage with the speakers that are there and they're willing to answer your questions. Great. Well, what can I say? So Naveen is a QA manager at nDreams. So like Clemens earlier this morning, they both work there. And yeah, a day in the life of a QA. And I shall pass it to you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Should be sharing my screen now. Yeah, thank you, Kirsty and Sophia, for the introduction. I'm Naveen, and my talk is titled A Day in the Life of QA. So a little bit of intro about myself. I'm the QA manager at nDreams. My talk will cover my journey into QA. It'll also cover my team's journey into QA, a few of my team's journey into QA, some key roles in the QA industry, why I love QA, and I'll also cover my best advice for someone that's trying to get into QA in the games industry. So let me tell you about my journey into the games industry. So to get a little bit of context, you should know about my background. So I have an Indian background, and although my parents never advocated, for me to go down any specific career routes, you're always, especially in Asian countries, you're always in the mindset that, you have to be an engineer, doctor, or lawyer. And the creative side of the career, the design, the entertainment, that's never really been one of the big ones. Things are improving, but it's still quite narrowed in the few professions. So I never really considered going into the creative side. So I always thought, okay, I have to go down. I have to be a lawyer, doctor, or engineer. And I was very good at maths and physics. So I thought, okay, I'll try something in engineering. My dad's a software engineer. I didn't actually fancy software engineering, funnily enough. I actually I did my degree in aviation engineering. And although the first year was fun, I didn't really enjoy the second and third year. And I couldn't see myself making or enjoying a career in engineering. And, a lot of the lectures, I spent time playing video games instead. So by the time I graduated, I said, well, let me find a career in something I actually enjoy. And I played a lot of video games. So I thought, okay, let's see what the gaming industry has. And so I did a little bit of research on what kind of roles there are in the games industry. And I found QA, and I thought, wow, that's great. QA, you play games for a living. Like, what could be more fun than that? So I got into did some research on QA on what it's like to be a QA tester, and I started applying for QA tester roles. And I got an interview at a QA vendor companies. So those are it's outsourced QA basically. So gaming companies will hire outsourced QA to test the games basically. So I got an interview for one of them and got the job, and that's how I pretty much started my career in the games industry. And at the company, I was QA tester for a year or so, and then I was promoted to QA lead. And then after a year and a half or so of QA lead, I thought, okay, now I want to look for a studio role. So I started through my contacts that I'd worked with before, started to find the next progression for me, and I saw nDreams was offering a position and applied for nDreams, and I was lucky enough to get that position. So now I'm the QA manager at nDreams. So that was my journey into the games industry, although not very conventional. We got there in the end, and I'm loving every bit of it. I definitely do not regret leaving engineering. Let me also just tell you a few team members' journeys into the games industry. So I have quite a few characters on my team, and they all have different stories, and I just want to share those with you. So one of my testers, Sam, he actually got into the industry in probably the conventional, typical way that, he studied graphics design at uni, and he was doing a bit of freelance work, and he just wanted to get into, he just wanted to work on games. He loves playing games. So he applied for a tester role and got the job through his, degree and just background in playing games. One of my testers, Connor, he got his job through networking. So he had a friend that worked at a game studio, and he said, Connor, we've got an opening coming up. Would you be interested? Connor said yes, applied, and then he got the job through there. And my favorite one, my tester, Dan, is a senior tester at nDreams. And he actually got into the games industry by complete accident. So what he thought he was signing up for a game session, but what he was actually signing up for was a career workshop. So he turned up to this game session to play games, and he was doing such a good job playing the games that the people that organized it, they actually offered him a job. And he had no idea he was signing up for an interview, basically. But yeah, and he hasn't looked back since. I guess the main takeaway from all of that is there's no set way that you can enter QA in the games industry, but also just the games industry in general. I think I know more people in the games industry with irrelevant degrees to their role than I know people with relevant degrees. And I think video games is one of those industries that is pretty unique to that. People are looking more at your experience and what you've done rather than what you've studied. So even if you're, studying something else and you want to switch your career to the games industry, it is totally possible. Why I love QA. So, initially I got into it because I wanted to play video games for a living. So that was the main thing that got me into QA. But what I found out after spending time in QA, what I really enjoyed about it was talking to people. As QA, you're one of the unique parts of the game industry where you talk to different sectors, different people, different teams. So as QA, you will talk to your design team, your art team, your development team, in all levels of seniority. And I just love connecting with people, people from different backgrounds, different stories, making connections, contacts. And that is what I really loved about QA. And also playing video games. So there's also that. Next, I want to just cover some key roles in QA. So we have your typical, QA tester, QA lead, QA manager. If you're just graduating or you're starting your career in QA, you'll probably be looking at one of the QA tester roles. Someone who's already in the industry will probably look for, the more senior ones, such as QA lead or QA manager. So QA tester has, junior QA, mid-level, senior QA, same with lead as well. But the main role for QA tester is basically to play the game. You follow set processes, test plans, and your main job is just to play the game, report any issues on the bug database that the company uses. You'll convey your issues to your team lead, to the development team, and that's pretty much QA Tester in a nutshell. You're pretty much just playing the game. Key skills and tools for QA Tester, I would say definitely having excellent written and verbal communication. Though you'll be doing a lot of writing, writing up bugs. You'll be doing a lot of talking to kind of share your process methodology on how you're kind of testing. It would be helpful if you had experience in playing the type of game that you're testing. So if you're testing a shooter game, for example, ideally you'd like to have some experience in playing shooter games. So things like that. As a QA lead, you have a few more responsibilities than QA tester. So as the name suggests, you will be leading your team. You'll be taking after your team of testers. You'll be their mentor. As a lead, you'll also be the main point of contact for your project. So you will know absolute ins and outs of that project. So any external or any part of the company that want to know about any issues, anything about the game, they will come to you. So any design members, any of your art team, they will contact you to find out anything about your project. So you really get to take ownership of your project. You'll also be onboarding new testers, training. You're pretty much the team lead. So you're still playing the game, just a few more responsibilities. Key tools is pretty much the same as tester. You need to have great, excellent written and verbal communication. You'll be doing a lot of database management, so you'll be looking after whatever database you're using. A lot of bug vetting. That's pretty much QA lead in a nutshell. And as QA manager, you're kind of taking away from the testing a little, and you've got the bigger picture, the overall picture. So you're kind of just aiming at improving processes. A lot of the work you'll be doing is probably going to be through email and Excel, a lot of budgets, cost management, hiring. You'll be the mentor for pretty much everyone in your team. Any issues that any of those have, they will go to you. You'll be doing a lot of talking with both internal and external stakeholders and partners. A lot of my time is spent just talking to people, which is also one of the things that I really love. A great analogy I love to use is, so if QA is your engine, as a QA manager, you're pretty much the engine oil. Anything that should be moving, you want to make sure stays moving. Those are the key roles in QA. And next, I want to just cover some tips and tricks on entering QA in the games industry. First and foremost, you need to be a gamer. You need to have genuine passion for gaming. You will be playing games, the whole week. Every day, in and out, you'll be playing games, and most often than not, it'll probably be the same game. So you need to have genuine passion for playing games, because if you don't, then you'll last maybe 1 month, 2 months, maybe if even that, but then you'll eventually get bored. So you need to have genuine passion for playing video games. Behaviors over skill. This one is kind of targeted at your soft skills. Whenever I'm hiring people, I'll always say knowledge gaps can be filled. I can teach someone how to write a bug, but I can't really teach someone how to be a good person. So that is really what will show in an interview for QA. It's not a very technical role. It is more about how you communicate, how you are as a person. So definitely work on your soft skills. Increase your network. Again, going back to Connor's story of how he got his job in QA through a friend. I actually also worked with nDreams before I joined nDreams. So when I did my first interview with nDreams, it was more of a catch up than an interview. I already knew about nDreams. Increasing your network is great, because follow the companies you're interested in, follow them on LinkedIn, Twitter, chances are if they're advertising for jobs, they'll post them on their socials. And word of mouth, will get around. Games industry is quite small, so it is very powerful to have that going for you. Portfolio is king. So work on your portfolio, and for QA, you may not think, oh, what do I put in my portfolio? There's a lot of relevant things that you can put in your CV in your portfolio. If you've done any game jams or even any closed beta, open beta testing, you can put that in there in your portfolio. I worked part-time back in college at Domino's, and I somehow managed to twist that into putting it into my CV, saying, oh, did quality control, I'm making pizzas, but I mean it was still relevant, funnily enough. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can put in there, and that will help you. Next, do your research. So definitely look up the companies you're applying for, know what they like to work for, know what they're offering, see what reviews other ex-employees, current employees are giving them. You will be spending more time with your colleagues than with your family. So you really want to know who you're getting into business with. Custom cover letter and CV. So if the job requirement has key things that they're really looking for, key criteria, you want to make sure that you highlight those in your cover letter and CV. Obviously, don't lie in your CV. Make sure that it is relevant to you and you do have experience in it. But yeah, definitely custom tailor your cover letters and CVs to match the jobs that you're applying for. Be a professional. So this one, pretty much, QA is a genuine career. Yeah, it is not a stepping stone to get onto something else. You can definitely make a career out of QA. It can be a stepping stone. It can lead to other opportunities because QA is heavily involved with all different parts of the industry, different roles. So QA can lead to production, to design, etc. But you need to show serious enthusiasm for QA. A lot of times I've interviewed people and they say, yeah, I want to become a level designer, but I thought I'd just do QA for now. Yeah, to me, that tells me the passion isn't really there for QA, and they won't really last too long. They won't enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying a job, you're not really going to do a good job. There's a lot of courses for QA available online. Some are free, some are paid. They're all very low price anyway. Udemy offers a few game courses. There's one for One Education, which is a game testing diploma, which is great to put on your CV and your portfolios. But yeah, if you do need any more info on courses, do you reach out and I can direct you to the right places. And lastly, don't give up. Everyone's going to have a different journey into the games industry. Some will find it easier than others, some will find it more difficult. But don't give up, guys. You will get your break. Just keep at it. And I wish you all good luck. And that concludes my talk. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Ukie, for having me. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you so much, Naveen. That was really interesting. So if anyone has any questions, then feel free to pop them in the chat now. Any questions about QA, about Naveen's journey in the games industry, feel free to just pop that in the chat now. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how you were saying that your parents kind of had sort of initial expectations about you being an engineer. Could you maybe talk a little bit about, or maybe give some advice for students who maybe are in the same situation where they're wanting to, have a career in games, but maybe they're not quite sure how to convince, their parents that that's kind of like a viable career? What advice would you kind of give to any of those students who are going through that?
Definitely, Sophia. That's a very relevant question, actually, because a lot of parents, at least from the people I've spoken to, they gaming wasn't that big during their time. So when they were going through uni, college, they didn't really know about, games industry, about entertainment jobs and kind of, creative jobs. So education is great for them, trying to tell them, yes, there is genuine career out of it, show them stuff, physically on what is available to you. Top level games industry executives, they will earn more than your typical, doctors, lawyers, engineers. So a lot of it is financial based, the decisions. So parents are like, yeah, we want you to be successful. In the olden days, success was just measured by how much you're earning. But nowadays, it's kind of focusing on how happy you are in your job. So if you are talking to parents, just tell them what you enjoy, and I'm sure if your parents understand where you're coming from, they will invest in whatever direction you're going into. My parents never pushed me into engineering. It was just something that I myself just kind of focused in on because that's what I thought I had to do. But when I told them I'm going to gaming, they said, okay, just know what you're doing, we'll support you all the way. And after I graduated, the whole COVID pandemic hit, and the aviation industry actually went down. So it was kind of lucky for me that I didn't pursue aviation. But yeah, I've made a great career in games, and I'm enjoying it. And yeah, my parents, I'm pretty sure they're very proud.
Amazing, fantastic. Thank you so much. So it doesn't look like we have any questions, but we do have 10 minutes before our talk. So if there are any questions, feel free to just pop them in the chat now. I guess people are kind of going for their lunches now, which is why it's a bit quiet. But yeah, Naveen, so if any students want to reach out to you as a kind of follow-up, they have any follow-up questions off the back of your talk, do you have like a LinkedIn or a Twitter or any way for them to
Yes, I have LinkedIn, and they can also drop me an email. I'm not sure if I have access to chat or if I can drop my email.
Yeah, you should see the chat. If not, just forward it to me and I can.
I'll pop it in here.
Yeah.
So that is my email. And let me just get my LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Naveen.
No worries. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Amazing.
And this is my
Brilliant. No, really, really interesting hearing about your journey and kind of thank you so much for giving such a in-depth understanding of what it's like to be in QA and how to get there. And I'm sure this is, great advice that you've imparted to the students today. So thank you so much for that.
That was a really good talk. Thank you.
Thank you both for having me.
Brilliant. All right. Take care, Naveen. Thanks so much.
Everyone,
Enjoy your
enjoy your day, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Right. So that was actually a really good talk, wasn't it?
Really great.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. So I believe that Paul Franks, who's doing the next talk, he's on his way back from vacation and is a little delayed in traffic. So what I'm going to do, it happens. So we've got a few, one of Ukie's events is a hub crawl where they normally go around the UK and hold talks, kind of like a student conference, but it's for businesses, and there's normally a theme to it. One of the themes recently was about starting your own business, which I think would be relevant to you guys, because you might at some point decide to start your own business. So I think what I'm going to do, he says that he might arrive at 12:15. I'm going to play you a few of the chats. This one was virtual, so it will just be a virtual kind of video for you. And yeah, what I'll do is, in case we don't finish, one of the videos is interrupted or anything, I'll put a link in the chat so you guys have access to it. And also just follow Ukie Twitter, or the Ukie student Twitter, because we do kind of promote when these hub crawls are happening. There are such a variety of topics, and some of them are going to be useful to you at a later stage. you know, this industry, it's all about networking, being proactive. So, you know, the more you learn, the better it is for you. Which probably is the most obvious statement made, but just to emphasize it. Yeah, so I'll share my screen, show that to you. Yep, and hopefully Paul will join us soon.
Enjoy.
So, hello everybody. Thanks, Leon. As Leon said, my name's Matt Frenchman, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sugar. We're a financing platform for video game studios. Thanks again to Ukie. We love working with you guys, and we're proud to sponsor this event. Yeah, we miss the physical events. I certainly used to enjoy going to all the locations and eating pizza and drinking beer and meeting people, and hopefully we'll get back to that soon. I'm going to share my screen just so I can get into the presentation that I've put together. Just bear with me while I do that. You can see my Spotify playlists. So what I'm talking to you about, or what I wanted to talk about in this talk is, actually maybe that hasn't worked. I'll just stick with this actually. Is actually starting a business and learning from all the mistakes and experiences that I've been through. What would I do if I had my time again? And if I were to put myself in the shoes of a game studio, what would be the most useful thing if starting from scratch? And actually, what would be the best advice I could give you? So just going through the slides, bear with me. So the reason I feel I can talk to you about these things and being very candid is I've made a ton of mistakes over the years. Brief background is I spent 16 years in banking, then I left and launched Sugar in 2019. I've spent overall 4 years in games. I've got 1 failed startup behind me. I've got 5 failed startup investments. And I've advised founders and mentored on accelerator programs and helped startups to fundraise and work within a games publisher. So I feel like I've had a good array of experience, which means I've learned a lot the hard way, but I've certainly learned a lot. And I just wanted to share some of the learnings with you guys. Just before I do that, just a quick overview of Sugar. We're a debt financing platform for the games world. So we are providing fully automated data-driven funding to game studios to help manage cash flow and to scale up and to finance marketing. The way we do that are through our 3 main products. First is Sugar Boost, which is effectively a marketing loan. So when you have a live game and you're looking to spend money on Facebook and Google and drive people to your game to generate revenues, we provide you with the finance for that. The second thing we have is Sugar Flow, which is giving you advance access to your revenues. So when you generate revenues at Apple and Google and PlayStation and Steam, they don't pay you immediately. So we provide you with the money immediately, so you don't have to wait. And then the third thing we do is VGTR finance. So this is a great scheme set up by the government and the HMRC. You get a rebate effectively on what you spend making your game. But it takes a while to process. So we bridge that gap and we give it to you immediately. So into the core of the presentation, if I had my time again and I could go back to the future, what would I do differently and what would be the learnings from that? And therefore, what would I convey to you guys as things to focus on as you think about building your business? Obviously, building and growing a successful studio, a game studio is obviously you need a great game idea, an awesome team, and a shared vision. But the other things that are super critical and maybe don't get as much bandwidth as they should do is how do you think about funding the journey? What's your people strategy? Do you have a roadmap of targets? And can you think ahead 12 to 24 months? Because that's really what you need to be doing when you're planning. And that is a critical step. I think right at the beginning, I probably didn't think far ahead enough. So this whole point about learning to juggle, it goes without saying that you need to have a game idea and start to think about a development team and start to think about creative input into the game. But the other things that you will need will be a business plan, targets and milestones, a hiring plan, a financial model, a funding plan. You'll need to have great accountants and lawyers around you. you'll have to think about things like an option pool. So how do you incentivize people who are joining your business, who maybe weren't founders along with you, but who are going to be imperative to building the studio? How do you incentivize them? So this whole concept of learning to juggle is because you're going to have to do all these things at once, and yet still keep your business moving forward. So this leads to a business plan. So this is a document that really is going to be the way you're going to start your business. It's a plan, it's your vision, it's how you set aside your targets and your milestones. You know, what's the game you're building? What's the genre you're building? What's the sort of studio you want to make? How are you going to get there? What are your hiring plans going to be? What software might you use? What's your marketing budget going to be? Who are you going to hire, etc., etc. And then there's a big piece around financial forecasts and funding, which I'll touch on a little bit later. There's a couple of links in the bottom of this presentation which are well worth reading. They come from a games point of view, actually, and were written a while back, but they're excellent from Gama Sutra and gamesindustry.biz. But your output really from a business plan should be a Google Doc. Your first draft's probably going to take you a week, and then you're probably going to rewrite it and go over it 10 times before you have the final business plan. And it's going to be something that you might want to share with a bank, or with a funder, or with an investor, or with a fund, or with an advisor. So it's a serious document, but I would always ask advisors for help and feedback, because you're going to be spending so much time in the weeds, as I often did, that I couldn't see the wood through the trees, and you want a fresh perspective. And also keep updating it. I would advise quarterly, because whatever you put in your first business plan is never going to play out that way. Something's going to go wrong. You have to have a plan B. You actually probably have to have a plan C, D, and E as well. So always be flexible. One of the best things that I learned along the way was to make sure to have milestones and targets. So, you know, if you're building a game, you know that you need to have certain developers hired in 6 months, and you need to have a QA person, or you need to start testing UA in 12 months, and you need to do your soft launch in 15 months, and you need to start scaling the game in a year and a half. Those sorts of targets are what you really need to map out. And those are the things that you need to share internally with your people, and also with advisors, and try and stick to those targets. Things will not go to plan, but at least you have somewhere to start from. And those milestones aren't just testing the game and launching the game, but it's hiring, it's partnerships, it's fundraising. So think about those things and try and set them. Again, I think revisiting them quarterly is a good idea, just like with the business plan. Then it comes to building a financial model, which is a massive part of building a business plan. Here I've put together a super simplified sort of 8-month financial model of a mobile game and what it might look like. So if you start in January, you are employing a few people, you're spending a bit of money on legals and software, and actually you're burning cash, which means you're investing in the business. So that's a good thing. And I would always advise doing that. But you need to be able to fund this investment in the business. So as you map out when you're going to launch the game, what the extra costs might be, the further to the right you go, the lower the losses will go, and you hope that you will break even and make profit. Now, it will never go to this plan, but at least you have something mapped out so you know how much you need to fundraise. And this is something that, I mean, our internal one, we revisit it. I look at it every day, actually, as I'm juggling costs, but officially we revisit the model every month. And this sort of forms a key part of the business as well. Once you've sort of figured out your financial model and your funding needs, and you know how much cash you're going to need, you have to think about how you're going to fund it. You know, where is that money tree? You can either bootstrap it, which means funding it yourself, and lots of people try and do that. So they work 2 jobs at a time, and they try and fund the studio themselves until they get to a critical milestone and they can fundraise. Other people look for grants. VGTR can be a good way to do it if you're at a certain stage and you've built part of the game. Or you can give away equity in the business, either asking angels or VCs or friends and family to invest. Or you can look to take loans from banks or specialists like ourselves. Or you can think about crowdfunding or Kickstarter campaigns. All of these things are viable options, but it's only once you've done the business plan and financial model and set your targets that you know which of these is right for you. So just quickly going into the differences between equity and debt, actually, because I think they're very relevant. Equity is effectively investment into your studio in exchange for shares. So an equity investor is looking for a very big return on their money. They want to be excited that you're going to build a studio and a game or a portfolio of games that at some point is going to be worth a lot of money to them. And typically you give away 20% of the company. I won't go through the buzzwords at the bottom, but these are the sorts of phrases that you'll need to think about as you're going down that route. And then debt is money that's borrowed that has to be paid back. Lenders could be banks or individuals or funds, or again, specialists like ourselves. You have to think about the interest rate you pay, how long the loan is for, and what the terms are. The advantage of this is that you don't give any equity away, and it's quicker to implement, and you don't have to think about a board, which will require a lot of governance on your part. So it's perfect for funding short-term projects, which is why we exist. Just coming to the closing part of the presentation now, there's 5 things that I've found in my dialogue with studios that they weren't completely on top of, or they didn't give enough bandwidth to. And the first is VGTR, so video games tax relief. For every £100 you spend making a game, as long as it is eligible and you get your BFI certificate and your accountant does the work, you get a rebate of about 20% of that. It's worth understanding, bizarrely, only about 20% of studios in the UK claim, even though they make games. So it's something to think about. The second thing is digital store payment terms. And what that means is Apple, Google, PlayStation, excuse me, that was my phone. Apple, Google, PlayStation, and Steam don't pay you immediately. They'll probably take 1 or 2 or even 3 months to pay you. So build that into your models and think about that for your cash flow. The third thing is pensions. You know, when you hire people, you have to provide pensions for them. It's a new government initiative that kicked in a few years ago. That's an extra cost. Build that into your models. And then the final 2 points are sort of linked: legal fees and an accountant. It's super important to have the right partners for you. So especially as a game studio, you're going to be investing in legal documents for publishers and IP and all those sorts of things. You have to have the right people in place. And then just on this final slide, you know, what are the things that I could do if I could go back in time 4 years and do them again? These are my main lessons that I would advise you guys on. So the first thing is speak to smart people and ask for help. So get advisors into the business who you trust, who can be your sounding board, who you can talk about strategy with. Then you need to plan and plan and plan and plan and plan. And that comes part and parcel with the business plan, the targets, the milestones. So over plan everything, because it's much better to be detailed about these things. Third thing is know what you're bad at. So, you know, in a game studio, as you're starting out, you'll be doing the finance, the strategy, the development, the creative, everything. But at some point, you can't do everything because you'll be juggling too many balls, and you need to find who are the best people who you can bring into the business to work with you. Fourth thing is don't work 7 days a week and avoid burnout. You listen to tons of startup or new business podcasts or read articles, and it all says work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. For me, that doesn't work, and I don't think there's any shame in admitting that. You need to have downtime to recharge your batteries. Fifth, just keep updating and challenging your plans and models and funding. Like I said, I think monthly for the financial model and quarterly for your targets and milestones is very good. Mistakes are fine, but make sure you act fast to rectify them. Be very strict on your to-do list, because lots of people will want parts of your time, and you'll get pulled away from what is really core to the business. And then finally, plan A never works, so always have a plan B and a plan C. So really this slide just wraps up all those things. You know, make sure you have a business plan, a financial model, a fundraising plan, have the right balance between debt and equity, and don't scrimp on your partners. That's really it. I don't know if we're doing questions, but otherwise here are our details. Follow us on Twitter or drop me an email. I love looking at business plans, models, having dialogue around games and studio growth. So I'm very happy to be involved and help. There's a few game studios that I'm working with very closely at the moment and trying to help them. So I'd equally be very keen to do that for other people. So I'll wrap up there and hand back over to Leon.
Amazing, thank you very much, Matt. We have a couple of questions, just really quick ones, I think. So the question about the slides, I will make sure that I share the slides with everyone afterwards if all of the speakers are okay with that. And then there was another question, Matt, which was, how do you know if your game is video games tax relief fundable?
That's a very good question. I would always defer and say, speak to a VGTR specialist, but you know, some of the key things are that you need to be spending on your development spend within the European Union, even though we've left, it's still applicable. And you need to be spending the money out of the company, out of the studio. Those are the two things that I find that people fall down on. And also you need to get a BFI certificate. That's super critical. So there's a test to be passed there, and they're very good at communicating that. It's just a process to go through.
Awesome. Well, actually, wait, another question just popped up here. When it comes to raising funds, is it common to combine funding methods such as angel investment loans and then follow up later with crowdfunding? If so, which would you recommend the startup start with, and which should we avoid going for first?
It's not common to combine them, but it's very doable to combine them. The only reason I would advise you not to combine them is because they all take time. So a loan can be relatively quick, but angel investment can take you probably 2, 3, 4 months to close, depending on your network. I would argue that angel investors is probably the best way to go, because if you're starting a new business, you can use your own network to find those people. And if they know you, then they probably trust you. Whereas crowdfunding is a long process to go through. It can be very effective, but it's probably not ideal for a brand new business.
Okay, we're still waiting for Paul, so I'm going to play another video for you guys. Hope you're finding this useful.
Thanks.
Hello there.
Awesome.
Holding that smile all the way through.
Yeah. Well, we're here to give a bit of a panel on kind of your experiences on starting up a business. So I think it'd be good if you both kind of introduce yourself. We'll start with Jay.
All right. Hi, my name's Jay. I am one of the co-founders of an indie company called Arrogant Pixel. We're based in London. We've been around since 2015, trying to make video games, and I'm here now to hopefully give you a few tips and tricks. I do a little bit of lecturing at the University of West London on the games design course, and I'm undertaking a PhD as well, looking at project management processes in video games, and that's me in a nutshell.
Pretty busy then.
Yeah, really.
And yourself, James?
Hello there. I'm James Brooksby. I've been professional in video games since about 95. Rose up in pretty big company, or company that grew pretty big in the 90s and early 2000s. Then started up a couple of studios. The last one I did, we just sold for Wargaming a couple of years back. I can't believe it's a couple of years ago now. And then crazily enough started yet another one, which is called Absolutely Games. Even made my own merch just recently, so you know, getting to that stage, and we're growing quite nicely.
Awesome, cool.
Well, that's a very short one, there you go.
Yeah, well, we'll post a link to the merch in the chat as well, so people can.
No, it's not purchasable yet.
No, okay.
Just for the team.
Yeah. Awesome, cool. Well, we'll start off with a pretty basic question there. So, when you guys first started your business, did you have a business plan, and if so, how important was that going forward? We'll go to you first, Jay.
Well, me and Ben, the co-founder, when we first started up the company, in 2015, so that was when we actually incorporated. But when we decided to actually start making games, it was like in 2011, 2012, we were like early 20s or something like that. So really, like, a business plan did not even cross my mind, really. All we wanted to do was to make video games. But where I basically picked up business plan business planning tips was from mentors, really, that they started to say, like, listen, you need to start getting some paperwork done. And also I came from the music industry, so we were a lot of the things that we were doing were sort of like band agreements. So it's very difficult to keep a band together if you don't have some promise of like financial reward later. So we're very much used to having these sort of informal agreements, you know, in terms of like bootstrapping projects and things like that. But a business plan specifically, you know, with, you know, the whole shebang, Word document, things like that, we didn't really come up with one when we first started. But we had a very clear idea of who owned what, who was responsible for what, and we were very careful in doling out shares, basically, when we were starting up. Maybe James has a different answer though, of course.
Yeah, James, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends. See, the thing is, people have different visions of what a business plan is. I've had to do a very formal VC one, which would kill your printer pretty much if you tried to make it, but we had to do it. But this time round, I would say I created a strong PowerPoint, which I tested on lots of people, along with a really robust spreadsheet, and importantly, had a vision, right? And that's really what people are after, right? There's the paperwork to back it up and something to send them after you've spoken, but generally you're getting across a vision. So strong vision, a method of getting it across, like a PowerPoint, some good spreadsheets so that you can defend in those Dragon's Den moments, which somebody will try and ask you a tricky question like, how much money are you going to make in the third year? And you're like, oh, so you kind of, you don't want to be caught in the headlights. So you can do that. And the thing that I'd say is quite a good discipline is create what I call a one-pager, which is to try and condense everything into what looks like a brochure sheet. Font very much to the edge, small font all the way to the edge, try and get it looking like a brochure, a one-page brochure for your company that condenses everything, the vision, market you're going for, who the team's going to be, and so forth into there. Because really, at the end of the day, it's nearly all about the team and the core vision, right? So, the team first.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. It's just the slides is such a good way visually of being able to get the personality of the studio across. So when you're pitching or communicating with other companies outside of just internal stuff, I suppose the business plan and things, I would be thinking that was more. I've never had to use it really, a formal document in the games industry or anything really like that, but I have been getting good responses from slides, like James was saying, and getting more of like a visual, package together. I would advise that. Yeah, for sure.
Nice little segue.
Again, it depends on the institutions you're raising from or outside. If you're asking a lot of money, like if you're asking for millions from a VC, they're going to expect a good amount of time being spent on this, and that's where you will create something that you could kill somebody with in terms of the amount of paper you're going to print out.
Very happy, yes.
And so you guys were talking about funding there. So what kind of funding options did you kind of look out for when you were starting off? And have you got any pros or cons to different types of funding models that you've gone after? James, you want to start with that one?
So I've done, publisher funding, project financing, equity financing, not only a tiny bit of debt, but not really much debt. Various different ones, and like I say, different types of equity financing as well, from friends and family rounds through to angel rounds, multi-angel rounds, and then VC rounds, and then strategic investors and international strategic investors. So quite a few different methods. Yeah. They're not massively different in a way. You want money, they want something.
Hi, Paul.
Hello, how are we?
Yeah, good, you?
Oh, yeah, not too bad, thanks. That was painful, but I'm back. I'm here. Thank you for waiting.
I really appreciate you joining us. Just to let you guys know that I'm going to put the link to the video that was playing in case you want to listen to the rest of it. But I'm sure you much rather listen to Paul. He's just come back from holiday and he rushed home, kindly enough to join us today. Oh, and I've just realized my video's off. There I am. So yeah, Paul, I think obviously because we're limited with time, I'm going to hand it straight to you immediately. Paul from Coots, here he is.
Great stuff, thanks, and apologies for being a bit late. Don't book a Zoom to loads of students when you're on annual leave, so thanks for having me. So my name is Paul Franks. I am the Interactive Entertainment Lead for Commercial Banking. Today was really, I don't know, maybe some encouragement on your journey, but also to signpost some of the things that we've been doing. So some of you may know Coots, some of you may not know Coots. So NatWest Group is probably the biggest business bank in the UK, and Coots is part of that NatWest Group. Coots is a private bank, first and foremost. quite well known in the sort of public eye for sort of banking royalty, and having sort of a qualification for private banking clients of £1 million to come and bank with us, which is kind of all true. But what most people don't know is we look after, we've got about 85,000 clients in the UK. And we look after a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs, because most of our private clients will generate their wealth from their business. And a big part of looking after businesses is in the creative environment. We have done for years. We formed a commercial banking entity 30 years ago, predominantly looking after TV, film, music, talent, which we still do today. So much of the stuff that you'll see in the cinema or on streaming channels, if it's produced in the UK, Coots will probably look after the production arm. And the same with musicians. We've looked after musicians for many, many years, and theatre production companies as well. So we've always had an offering to the creative sectors. But not really in the interactive entertainment world, so computer games. We looked at it some time ago, a few years ago, but no one was really concentrating on it. And it was, until I started the team, the interactive entertainment team, looking after commercial clients in 2015, no real bank was looking after, individuals, entrepreneurs in the space. Many other sectors, TV, film in particular, would look at the game sector as maybe something that people did as a hobby and not really that serious. And, I imagine you're all listening to this and watching this because you have an interest in interactive entertainment. So when I started the offering back in 2015, I think it was looked upon with some skepticism from colleagues and maybe, some clients as well. But as you know, it's one of the fastest growing sectors out there, and it's larger than TV, film and music combined. So really today was to continue encouraging you to look at this as a real career, as a real job, because it is. Many of my clients now, we've had a number that have sold their businesses over the last year or so for over £1 billion. And these are businesses that, have started, scaled tremendously, employ hundreds, if not thousands of people, and generate, a lot of profit for the shareholders who are numerous. So for me, looking at the client base that we've got now, we look after hundreds of game studios, we look after esports teams, esports players, we look after streamers and influencers, because at the moment, as we probably all know, that's where the eyeballs are, which is why it generates so much income for the sector. So for me today, it was really a case of, continue on the paths that you're at. We all know that there's lots of specialist education offerings out there with universities and courses, but also what happens, after you finished the education. What are your plans? Many clients, many people that I know, entrepreneurs now, delayed getting into the interactive entertainment sector properly, forming a company, instead choosing to go and get a real job, as it was as maybe their parents or colleagues or friends or would say. But this is a real job, so I would encourage you to look at options within the sector. You obviously there's the ability of setting up your own business, which many clients do. It's tough. I've been doing this for 20 years. So I've helped entrepreneurs for many years scale their businesses, but it's difficult. Talking to colleagues and peers, mentors is probably one of the best things that you can do in this sector. I generally find, having been in this sector now for 7 years, it is pretty inclusive and open. There isn't really many people that I know that won't share their experiences and their time, whether they're well-known individuals in the press and have set up big gaming companies, or streamers, influencers, or esports teams and players. Generally, if you ask, people will give their advice as far as their journey. So for me, it is really encouraging. I mean, there's a huge skills gap in this sector at the moment. The clients that I've got are all looking. I've got many jobs open at the moment because the sector's thriving and there is that skills shortage. So if you studied, or even obtained these skills in your own time through, being interested in it and maybe watching YouTube videos and skilling yourself up that way, I definitely encourage to look at, either a career from a job perspective or even starting your own business. There's going to be much change in the way that we interact with the internet over the next sort of 5 or 7 years with Web3. So I think from a skills perspective, there's lots of opportunities there for people that are learning the differences, because maybe more experienced people that have jobs at the moment wouldn't necessarily go and skill themselves up in their spare time. So for me, it's really, again, just encouraging you to look at the options and potentially start your own business in your career. We feel, I've been in this sector now for, as I say, 7 years, and we have lots of clients now. But equally, sometimes when I'm at conferences, and we've been to many Ukie conferences and other ones across the globe, sometimes people who know Coots, they'll ask me where I work, and I'll say Coots. And they might be a bit disheartened because they might just be on their journey from a career perspective or business perspective, and they might think, well, we're not big enough to come and bank with Coots. That's the reason that we've just launched an accelerator. It's the first accelerator Coots have ever launched. We're 330 years old as a bank, so it's quite impressive that the first one is in the interactive entertainment sector. And the accelerator, it starts in June, runs for 6 months. It's completely free. You don't have to be a Coots client. You don't have to be a NatWest client. It's open for entrepreneurs or people coming out of education, further education, or maybe just thinking about getting into the space, the interactive entertainment space. So if you haven't formed a business, that's fine. If you've recently formed a business, that's fine. We're not offering spaces for people that have had businesses for many years. This is for really businesses that have just formed or people about thinking about getting into the space. So the accelerator really is a case of packaging up all of the Coots expertise through the entrepreneurs and the specialists that we have relationships with. They're vast. They're lawyers, they're accountants, they're funders, there's VCs, there's well-known people that have been in the sector for many, many years offering advice, all free. You package that up with NatWest, who are our parent, and then they have an award-winning accelerator program. They are going to be delivering the program. The content is going to be from Coots. We are taking 50 applicants on. Applications are open now. If you go to the Coots website or look me up on LinkedIn, there'll be plenty of links to the accelerator there. And we're looking for 50 entrepreneurs, applicants across the 3 sectors that we class as interactive entertainment, which is games, esports, and streaming. And we want an equal split, male, female, equal demographic diversity from a background perspective. And it gives the applicants 6 months of information, really, of how, should you choose to start a career, form a business in interactive entertainment, how you can do that, help, advice. You'll hear from entrepreneurs, well-known entrepreneurs in each of those spaces. So well-known entrepreneur in the game space, the esports space, and streaming. And they will give you nuggets of advice, what they've experienced, how they've done it, challenges, what not to do, what to do. So it should prove invaluable if you're interested in furthering, your career in this space. And as I say, the purpose of that is just to continue to shine a light on the sector. I have many clients that will tell me, if they've come back from a family gathering at Christmas, maybe their aunt or grandparents will say, you're still messing around in computer games and, you consider getting a real job. And these are people that, run billion-dollar businesses, because it's a misconception that if you, play computer games professionally, or you make them or you stream them or influence them, it's not a real job. It is absolutely a real job, and it's going to continue to be, and it will be a powerhouse of income to the UK and the rest of the world for many years to come. So, we want to make sure that we're doing our bit to shine light on that, and to help. So if you are interested in a career in this space, come along, have a look at the accelerator. applications are open now for about another month. They close 13th of May. Applications will take a few minutes, so take some time, get the application in, and then hopefully we can welcome you on that in June. And then, as I said, it'll run for 6 months completely free. And then COVID permitting, hopefully it's all starting to open up again now. There'll be a mix of online and physical events, and then come December, we'll all come together in London, hopefully, for the closing and see what's next. But yeah, today was really a case of just encouraging and signposting that in case it was of interest to people. And yeah, obviously, please do feel free to reach out to me if there's any other questions, but conscious of time and I was late, so I'll close that there, Kirsty. And if there's any questions, by all means, let me have them. Otherwise, thanks for having me.
Thanks for that, Paul. I think if people do have any questions, is there a way that they can contact you, maybe? Just because.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got my email, so you can absolutely share my email with them. They're probably all over socials, LinkedIn's. There's lots of information on there. But yeah, if they want to get in touch with, via email, happy to answer any questions.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. I'll just put that in the chat for everyone. But yeah, we've got 2 minutes until our next speaker. Does anybody have any quick questions that they'd like to ask Paul? Don't see anything coming in, Paul, but I know that you rushed and now you just spoken nonstop for 20 minutes. So I'm sure you just need to have a cup of tea and breathe, don't you?
Yeah, it was either rush back and try and do it with plenty of time, sod's law, there's accidents, or stay where I was and try and do it with lots of distractions. But no, it's fine. I really appreciate you fitting me in, and apologies for being a bit late.
Oh, no problem. Appreciate that you were so dedicated to join us. I was worried that you weren't going to come. I was like, I'm going to have to play some more videos.
No, definitely was going to get here.
Okay, Paul. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a relax after a busy morning, and hopefully see you soon.
Great stuff. Thanks, Kirsty. Thanks, Sophie.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, shame. Bless him. So we are just waiting for Kim, our next and last speaker, which is always so sad, but it has been quite a busy morning. We're just waiting for her to join. So I shall, or do you know what it could be? She could be in the chat. If you could give me a moment. No, she's not. Okay. If we could just give a few minutes. As I said, I've put Paul's email address in the chat if you want to contact him directly. Very kind of him to do that, as well as also put the link to the pub crawl videos that I played earlier on, with the topic of starting up your business basics. So yeah, there's a bit of boring stuff when it comes to budgets and whatnot, but it's all going to be useful. It's unfortunately stuff you're going to have to think about when starting a new business. So let me just drop Kim a lovely email just to see where she is. Hopefully she'll be joining soon. And I hope that you guys are learning stuff from this. And again, I mean, it's just so lovely about this industry because people are willing to help out, new generations. It's such a lovely, lovely industry to be in. It's not a dog-eat-dog world in the games industry. So don't be shy of reaching out to any of our speakers, whether on social media or if you find their email like Paul gave. They are there to help and they're not going to ignore you or be rude to you. So you just got to do it. It's going to help you in future, as well as a lot of yesterday's speaks were about, networking is so important in this industry. And this is your window to start that networking, because you might meet them in a few years and they might have a job for you, or they might have a contact for you. That's one of the main ways of getting into this industry. So yeah, keep that in mind.
Our next speaker is a managing director of a recruiting, a games recruiting firm. So that's going to be quite interesting, getting her perspective on, getting your CV right, getting, making the most of your experiences and how to best present yourself to recruiters when that time comes. Some of you may already have had internships or jobs, but yeah, it's certainly going to be really an interesting kind of perspective. So hi, Kim.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Long time no see.
Hi, how you doing? You all right?
Good. The last time I saw you, you had blonde hair, I think.
So, well, it was probably a bit lighter. So it seems to be going darker as I get older. I think I saw the grey shows more.
No, it looks absolutely great and shiny.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you very much. Keeps my neck warm.
Well, since it's her past, should we just pass it straight on to you? So
Sure.
as we've mentioned, this is Kim, Managing Director at
OPM
Ukie.
jobs.
Thank
Put it on the sweatshirt somewhere. There you go.
Sorry, it's been such a busy morning. My brain, I think, has just gone, okay, Kirsty, have a rest.
Kirsty's come from the BAFTA Awards yesterday, so
I'm self-inflicted then. I have no sympathy.
Self-inflicted. Yeah.
I
Meanwhile,
was
I'm
one
here
of
with
the first to
COVID,
leave.
having
Oh, were
to
you?
leave it.
That's
Yeah,
well.
but when they served dessert at like 11:30 at night, I mean, it was, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, kind of
Back of the job.
with my gluttony. That's my problem.
You'd have stayed longer if you were gluttonous. Well done for trying to go at a reasonable hour. It's not easy, these events, is it?
Absolutely. Okay, Kim, thank you for joining us, and over to you.
Cool, right. Well, I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully you can now see that presentation. I hope.
Yes, we can.
Yep, excellent. Okay, so this is entitled Getting into the Games Industry, but it's more about how not to get a job in games. So I'll go through the presentation and then I have stories to go with each point. So you say I have about 25 minutes? Cool, yep. Lovely. Yep. Okay, super. Right, I'll crack on. So this is me. I'm the MD and owner of OPM. We were established in 1998, so we just celebrated our 24th anniversary, which is probably older than most of the people listening to this. So yeah, 1998, we place internationally. So we've placed in 37 different countries so far. We're actively working, it's actually 123 clients as of today and 714 vacancies because we just had our weekly meeting with the team. Last year, we represented over 1,400 people. Our service is free to job seekers. We're not like a talent agency, like an acting agency or anything. We can't, it's illegal for us to charge you. The people who pay our bills are the companies that are looking to hire. They instruct us on the vacancy, and it's our job to then go and find the candidates, or for them to find us, which would be great. We have to be incredibly fussy because the companies are paying us to do this service. So they look to us for the unicorns, the triple horned unicorns, the several spotted unicorns. And for that, obviously, they then pay us a fee, which is based on the basic salary of the candidate. So of all the people that apply to us, on average, only about 34% even get into our database. There are certain vacancies that more people will apply who can't do it, and certain vacancies who, we only get people that can actually do it. So we don't have a magic wand. We know if you haven't been able to get in on your own, we can certainly give you advice and feedback, but it may be that we don't have the magic wand. So how do you stand out from the crowd? And this is what's going to be important to everybody. There's more people applying for jobs at the junior end than there are vacancies available. So I know from a client a couple of years ago, they advertised a design vacancy and they got over 500 applications in 3 days. So that's what you're up against. So my job is to tell you how to stand out and how to get ahead of the rest. So obviously your degree or your education is going to make you stand out because you've committed to 3, maybe 4 years of your life, even longer if you're doing a master's afterwards. And any education, anything you're doing, even if it's an A-level, or a GCSE on a chosen topic, it shows your commitment and that you really want to do it. Some of you may just be a hobbyist. You may be making games for fun and doing some of your own code, doing your own artwork. That's absolutely fine too, because as you'll learn later, your demo, your portfolio, is going to be the thing that really makes the difference. The CV is important, and I'm going to give you some advice on how to put that together, but it's proving that you can do it. There's going to be a million people applying for jobs saying, I can do this and I studied all this on my course. I can actually do it is really where it makes the difference. If a company is going to give you money every year with no guarantee of a return on that, they need to see that you can actually do the job. So that's really important. Obviously, if you've managed to release a game as part of an indie studio, you've had some freelance work, or you've formed a studio between you and some of your friends, brilliant. God, if you've got anything published, that's fantastic. And if you know the statistics behind that game, you know, when it released, how many it sold, how long is it a game with a long run, or is it a game that sold millions, you know, that would be nice, wouldn't it? On the first weekend, that kind of information, really, really useful. And the QA route is still a route into games. I would advise, if you're going to take this route and really you're looking for something else, don't go into the interview suggesting that when they say, why do you want this job? You say, well, actually, I want to be a 3D artist, but I thought I'd start here. All companies want you to do the job that you're being hired for at least a year or two. So it is a career on its own as well. There's lots and lots of quality assurance companies out there, language companies, you know, localization and translation. In fact, a friend of mine is just setting one up on a Caribbean island, believe it or not. We had his head of studio job to work on, and 4 people actually said they didn't want to relocate to the Caribbean. So I'm pretty much dusting off my CV and packing my case now, to be truthful. Couldn't do the job, but yeah, so that is a route on its own now, just the same as everything else, because the industry is so big. So where do I find these magical jobs? Well, there's job boards, so there's gamesindustries.biz, there's Game of Sutra if you're looking across the pond, there's Jobs in Games, there are a lot. MCV Develop have a site, gamesindustry.biz, they also have a site, so you'll see lots of jobs advertised on there. LinkedIn is the place where we go. That's where we go. Most of our jobs are advertised on there. There's always links from our OPM page on there. I think we've got 38,000 followers on there now. So we tend to publish stuff on there as well. Obviously, there's Twitter, there's Discord, a lot of really good Discord groups to get into now, and some Slack ones as well, which I haven't mentioned on here. Instagram and Facebook, you might find that the people who are hiring share the job ad that they're looking for, maybe for their own team. So you might not find actual job ads. We post them a story on ours once a week, but you may not find actual jobs, but that's where you're going to network. And as Kirsty was just saying, as I came online, networking is going to be crucial. You know, so much of it is about being in the right place at the right time. So do connect with hiring managers, find out who's looking for what. Obviously the internal HR people and recruiters as well, and obviously us recruiters, which I've said on the end. Connect with as many people as you can, because you'll then get a really good feel for what's going on out there and who they're looking for. It's not just what they're looking for, but who. You know, football companies will only want people, you know, who is it down in Stratford? Oh my God, Sports Interactive, duh, Miles's company. If you're not a football fan, you wouldn't even want to work there, because they're all obviously got to be football fans. So, you know, if you're a fan of the games that they make as well, that always make that clear. That makes a huge difference. You know, I'm recruiting for OPM at the moment, and anybody who's applying to us just because they want a remote job, you know, I want them to work for us. To come and join OPM because of what we stand for, what we represent, and what we do. So you need to make that clear. So connect also with senior games developers, the people who are doing the job that you dream of, or have the portfolio that you absolutely blew your way, or have worked on something that you absolutely love. Follow those people, make your network. Everybody likes to talk to everybody. Don't feel that anybody is ever going to be horrible and turn you down, because this industry, frankly, is just not like that. It's probably the nicest industry I've ever worked in, so bear that in mind. And events, I mean, the fact that you've joined in with this, put it on your CV, put it on your LinkedIn. If you haven't got a LinkedIn profile, please get one, and make sure you've got your links to your portfolio, etc. on there. Get recommendations if you can, and give other people recommendations. Be active, post on there, reshare stuff on there. It's definitely the place. When we use the recruiter tool, which recruitment agencies pay a fortune for every year, we use search words. So we need you to be discoverable. We need to be able to find you on there, and find links that works to your portfolio. So we could go check you out and then approach you if we think you're right for one of our vacancies. So yeah, so do that. And events, you know, there's some real life events. Obviously, it's the London Games Festival. It was once yesterday. There's a lot going on. Get out there and see people and have some fun again, because the last couple of years have been testing, to say the least. You can see there's a list of people there on the right. Some are still in games, some aren't. I know at least 4 of them. So, you know, and these are people that I may cross paths with at some point in the future. You know, I make sure I never burn a bridge. I make bridges everywhere. So if I choose to go over them and I want to talk to that person about anything, and vice versa, that relationship's always still there. So CVs. You may have been given a template to work to. We've got 2 templates on our website, so do go and have a look at those. If you haven't started your CV, LinkedIn will create a CV for you. But what we find with LinkedIn, with Reed, with Indeed CVs are shocking. They don't allow you any personality. You haven't even got interests and hobbies on most of them. And I think, bearing in mind the industry you work in, what you're playing, what you last played, are you a film buff, you know, are you into wargaming, you know, what is it about you that makes you you? Do you travel, do you cook, all that kind of stuff? They want to know that you're going to fit in. So put it all in there. I know with a lot of industries, people take video game playing off their CV because it used to be perceived as being, you know, a bit sort of childish. No, you want to work in games. so do put them on there, and put the stuff that matters at the top. We now think, because there's so many applications going in and recruiters are incredibly busy at the moment, and also CVs go into portals a lot of the time. They don't go to an email address. They go into a system. So make sure that if you're applying for a job, you've put the important stuff at the top. So you've got why you want to apply. You've got the relevant skills that match what they've got. I think they reckon now you've only got about 6 seconds or something that somebody's going to read the top of it, because they get so many. And a lot of the time, the person receiving your CV isn't actually going to be the hiring manager. So they don't necessarily know that that logo on your CV means that you've worked on this kind of, you've used this kind of software. They're not going to necessarily recognise the games on your CV if you've already worked on them. So make sure that you explain it and you put it at the top and you make it really, really easy to find. Because believe me, if you've got a CV that's more than kind of 2 or 3 pages long and they don't find the stuff immediately, they may not have the time to look further. So you might have something brilliant on the end of the last page, but they might not necessarily find it. So remember to do that. Run a spell check. If you're dyslexic, it doesn't matter. There's a high proportion of people in this industry who are dyslexic, and on the spectrum. It seems that we attract people who think differently and present themselves differently, which is what makes games so unique and special. It's brilliant. So, you know, nobody minds as long as you just explain it. So CV templates I've covered. Check that your details are correct. We're interviewing, as I said, at the moment, and we have had one where the phone number didn't go anywhere, so we couldn't contact them. We had to email. So make sure that they work, and definitely your links to your demo. The number of people that I've looked at who on LinkedIn have their own website and you click on it and it doesn't work and GoDaddy are trying to sell it to you. Don't do that. So make sure that everything you've got works. And when you have got a portfolio on a website, make sure it's easy to find. So we'll go on to that in a bit. So check their details. Try and keep it professional, but do put your sense of humour into it. Do put your character into it. I've had CVs with all sorts of things on them over the years, but the one that really stands out is the one where the interests and hobbies said biting the heads off rats and satanic worship. And I thought, this is somebody I need to talk to as a programmer. And it was back in the day when we used to actually be able to meet everybody face to face. And I met him and we got through the interview. And as a born again Christian, this was super interesting to me. So I said, so tell me more about your interests and hobbies. And he said, oh no, I'm not really a satanic worshipper and I don't really bite the heads off rats. And I must admit to being a little disappointed. And he said, no, I just didn't think anybody read interests and hobbies. So I thought I'd put it in and see if you did. So maybe don't go that far, but do put stuff in that tells them who you are and what's important to you in life. And use words, not images. As I said, if you use a logo for the software that you're using, the person reading it might not recognise it. And equally, if it's going into a portal, the portal can't read it. And if we're doing a Boolean search for you, as everybody does these days to find candidates, they can't find an image, they can only find words. So make sure you've done that. Also make sure that your CV isn't too long. We did have one once that was 12 pages long and 1 page was just the person's photograph, which was lovely. But you kind of lose the will to live when you're reading a 12-page CV. And make sure that there's nothing random in there, like a picture of a go-kart. We got that on one. I have actually got on the next slide an example of possibly the worst CV I ever received. Excuse it not being branded like everything else. I literally put this in this morning to show you. But this is a real CV that we were sent applying for one of our internal jobs. And so the name and obviously contact details were all blanked out. But I don't know if you can read that personal statement. Apart from the fact that there is virtually no punctuation, bar 1 apostrophe, a couple of apostrophes. There's swearing in here. The spelling is wrong. The grammar is wrong. And that was somebody's genuine application to come and work for OPM. So I'll just give you a second to read that in the hope that you can. So I'm sure this person is a lovely person, but whether they did this and didn't realise they'd uploaded it, I've got no idea, and literally only wanted to work in their own hometown, and we're in Essex. So yeah, it was that was an interesting one. It was one on read, but yeah, so don't do that. I'm doing this because I have 2 screens and the presentation is on that one. So I keep pointing that way and you're wondering why, that's why. Yeah, so do make sure your CV looks a bit better than this. Okay, right, portfolios. This is the subject we probably get asked the most questions about, and it's the one that we like to give the most feedback on. So for artists, I mean, you think it's a given, show your best work. But as you improve, you need to make sure you keep your portfolio up to date. So what you send is still the best that you can do right now. The company is looking to employ you for what you can do now. We have had demo that was 8 years old. We've had demo that was actually done not by the person who sent it, but by the person we sent it to, which was hilarious. So make sure you include stuff that is yours. And if you've worked in a collaboration, put in who else worked on it, not necessarily names, but what they did, how long it took, and obviously which parts of it are actually yours. There's nothing wrong with sending stuff that other people have worked on, as long as you identify what you can do. Obviously, at some point, if you try and claim that work is yours and it's not, and they ask you to do that in your job, you will get well and truly found out, and you'll probably lose your job and any chance of a good reference. So make sure that that your work is all your own, and include the recent work as well. If you've done a piece, and I often see this with people who draw, where they put what they did 5 years ago and then they show the progression in their style and how much better they've got. And I think that's a really nice thing to show if you can. Also show that if you've done the wireframe, if you've done the skinning, and if you've done, the colour choosing and everything else, put that in so you can, people understand that not only what it takes if you go for an animation job just to animate something, but what it takes to build it, to make it, the best animation it can be. And anything else relevant to vacancy in a similar style to your CV. If you're applying for something specific, or it's like a particular genre, a particular style, or it's the platform that you've worked on before, make sure you put that in your portfolio and that they can see that first. They can find it really easily. Websites with loads and loads of pages are brilliant, but you've got to imagine that everybody has very little time right now. We've never known the job market to be like it is right now. I've in the 24 years that I've had OPM, and the 30 years I've been in games, it's never been like this. So you're up against time when people are looking at your stuff. So make sure you're really easily discoverable and easy to find. So yes, anything relevant for the vacancy, and look at other portfolios. There is a really good website that Brandon, who works for me, went and found, and it's a company called Decagon. And they are a collective of 50 professional games artists, animators, designers, and they have their assets for sale. So they have a shop, but you can see how they've done it, you can see what they've got, and you can see how they've presented it. And it's a really good way to show, because obviously they're trying to sell it, you're trying to sell yourself to get yourself a job. I mean, you may sell your assets as well, why not? But go and have a look at Decagon. We'd recommend it. Their website always goes up after I do one of these talks, but they're just a really good example. And likewise, the people that you're following you and you're going to network with, go and have a look at their portfolios to give you creative ideas how to do it. You'd do the same if you were cooking. You'd look at recipes and you'd watch videos and you'd go and see, the ways that you think would actually work for you. Do the same with your portfolio. So next slide, design. Bit more of a challenge because companies don't want a whole design document, obviously, in their building. But it's difficult for you sometimes to show what you can and can't do. So just show evidence of the design work that you've done. So if there's a specific part of the game that you've done the design for, if there's a level that you've done, or there's an idea you've got, don't send the whole thing, but do send examples of that. Make sure you show a variety if you've got a variety. So if you've got a broad set of skills, you don't just do war games, you don't just do racing games, you've actually done a little bit of everything. That can be quite useful. So make sure you've got that in there. But again, if you're applying for a job that is a racing game and you've done a track design or something, or you've designed some sort of challenge within the game, add that in. So it's the specific thing they're looking for and they don't have to go look for it. And keep it up to date with recent work. Of course, keep it up to date with recent work. Your portfolio is nothing more important than your portfolio at this stage, or diorama, as we've heard it described in the last few years, which is a single page. I've only ever seen them from one company who said they requested them. We haven't seen them since. So I don't know if any of you have been advised to create a diorama. If you have, please do. But I dare say that would just prompt more questions. So I don't, if you're going to do a diorama, maybe make it a front page, but then go into the detail that you want to show in subsequent pages. Yeah, so look at other portfolios for creative ideas. Programming. So do you send your source code straight to everybody? Absolutely not. Do you put it on GitHub? Absolutely, yes, you do. Daniel, who works for me, has been with me 15 years now, and he runs our code desk. And the way we structure it at OPM is that everybody is an expert just in their field. So we have 2 people who just work on art, 1 person who just works on technical art, 1 who just works on commercial. So they all know what they're talking about. They've all done it for a while and can advise on this. And Daniel said GitHub is absolutely still the go-to. Obviously, if you've actually programmed a game, you've got anything playable, even if it's a level, that's fantastic because it shows that you not only know how to code it, but it actually works. And that's the bottom line. Companies like to take on the graduates and the people who have got the up-to-date, in the moment, this is what everybody's doing now, so they can combine those with the more experienced people who know the shortcuts. And the bottom line is, if you're aiming for here, and they might go that way and you might go this way, as long as you get here, you can then combine how you got there and make it the best, the most efficient way to code it. And maybe add a few things that the more experienced people don't know about because it's new and you know it. And YouTube links, YouTube clips are brilliant. Everybody's got access to YouTube. It's really easy to work with for you and really easy to work with for them. And again, make sure that your titles are very discoverable. Discoverability is a massive, massive thing for you guys at this stage. You've got to make sure you're found. So, and to illustrate what Daniel looks for, while he's looking for coders. This is a GitHub profile, and you can see that the top person is kind of dabbling. From January to April, they didn't really do a lot. The darker the colour, obviously, the more they've updated things. And the person at the bottom, you can see how many contributions they've made and that they're constantly going in and updating things as well as putting new things in. So, if Dan is going to spend his time interviewing somebody to send to one of his clients to hopefully go and work there and stay there, he's going to approach the bottom person first, and so is everybody else. So bear that in mind, okay? If this is something that you're doing and you realise that this is actually only ever going to be a hobby for you, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it is something that's your passion, we placed somebody who was only 16 years old many years ago. He had just left school. He had nothing beyond GCSEs. And I think it was even O levels back then. It was so long ago. But he's a really good example because he was downloading engines from the internet and reverse engineering them for fun. So, anything that you're doing that just shows that this is, they say if you get a job doing what you love, you don't work a day in your life. But it's very true, and companies are looking for that kind of person. So I'm going to whiz through the rest. Interviews. I don't know how many of you obviously are at the stage where you're applying for jobs. If you're going to go for an interview, make sure you know who everybody is. Make sure you know the company. You've researched them. I rang somebody once to interview them for myself, and she said, "Oh, I've applied for 3 jobs. Can you just remind me who OPM is and what you do?" I've had another interview where somebody actually asked me how I got to the position I'm in and how long I've been with the company. Clearly hadn't even looked at the website. So make sure you know where you're going. Ask the format, how long it will be, and if there'll be a test. Tests are very popular, so be mentally prepared for that. You are allowed to ask all of this stuff. It will actually tell them you're well prepared, not that you don't know what you're doing, okay? The only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. Remember that. There are some stupid answers, though. So make sure you know, prepare any questions you want in advance. If they get answered during your interview, think of something else to ask at the end, you know, if you're still interested, because it really shows them that you're, you know, this is that you want to be there. So make sure you've done that and know exactly where you're going. Don't do what I do and turn up at a client who moved 2 years before. Well done, Kim. Happens to the best of us. I'm going to talk about what to do on the day as well. So you are in a professional environment. Do not wear a suit. They'll think you're a lawyer. You know, we have a casual, everybody has a casual work ethic now. But most people would like you to turn up clean in clothes that kind of almost match and just, you know, show that respect, even if it's online. We did have somebody who the client rang us and said that he'd actually done the whole interview with no top on. I mean, I'm sure it's very hot in Brazil, but that's no excuse. And do make sure you're not wearing earphones. And when somebody says, would you mind taking them off? The answer is not, it doesn't matter. I'm not playing anything right now. The answer is take it off. So the stories I could tell, but we've only got 5 more minutes, so I need to hurry. So yes, do wear the nicer things. Ask questions to get your interviewers talking about the company, and it will help you get in a flow if you ask about them. This interview process is a two-way thing. So ask about them and find out who they are, and you know, you'll find that you relax a lot more then as well. Don't stress, don't panic. Be the best version of yourself, and you will enjoy it. And even if you don't get the job, obviously it's great experience. We did have somebody who was so nervous. They were driving up the M62 to go to Manchester. I don't know if you know your geography, but they got so nervous that they couldn't turn off at Manchester, and they just disappeared off the radar. We couldn't get an answer on the phone. The company was like, we thought they'd had a crash. It was horrendous. They rang us from Liverpool because they got so nervous they couldn't get off the motorway until it ended. And luckily, the client was really sympathetic, and they went back and did the interview 2 hours later. So, but, you know, don't worry about that. Imposter syndrome, everybody gets it. 77% of people get it. It is equal around women and men. It is the thing. I don't know if you've ever been typing. You can all clearly type because you're born with keyboards in your hands. But when you're typing and somebody comes and stands behind you and watches what you're typing, suddenly you can't type. That's imposter syndrome. So it's literally can be as simple as that. So, you know, everybody interviewing has been where you are. They've been in your chair and they've felt how you're feeling. They want you to be the one who gets the job. Apart from the fact that interviewing takes a long time and a lot of effort, they want, you know, they like you. They invited you for a reason. Do ask why that was. You know, how come you got an interview when lots of other people wouldn't have done? And, you know, and use that, take that on board. That's, you know, it's a really healthy thing to do. And they do want you to succeed. They want you to be the one. That's why they've invited you. So, and at the moment, with so many vacancies, there's never been a better time to be trying to get into this industry. So keep that in mind as well. But don't get greedy. So after your interview, drop them a message to say thank you. Remember your manners, whether you get the job or not. As Kirsty quite rightly said, you will cross paths with these people in your career. It still feels like a cottage industry, even though it's worth 1.7 billion. You know, it still has that feel. At lots of events I see people I've been seeing since I started. So do that. If you're not offered, if you are offered the job, there's a lot of discussions. I watch a couple of websites where it's all people asking questions, and they say, well, if the band for the job is 20 to 30 and I'm only on 20, surely they should pay me 30 because that's, and they're just trying to get me cheap if they don't. No, they've got a banding, and it depends on your experience. And if you're good enough to get 25, 30, whatever, that's what they'll pay you, because right now they can't afford to lowball you and not get you, or worse still, bring you in and then lose you. So, you know, yes, companies are designed to make money, and yes, if they can save money anywhere they can, they will. But on the recruitment front these days, it just doesn't happen. If anything, it goes the other way. So yes, do remember that. And if you're not offered it, be courteous, still message them and thank them for the opportunity. Never burn a bridge. And then quickly, you can still mess it up. We placed somebody, I had 2 stories that are always the same at this point. Somebody who was extremely senior, who was relocating internationally, and she was such a problem to the relocation agency, constantly demanding more, and constantly asking more and more questions and wanting this and wanting that. The relocation agency actually rang the client and said, we think she's going to be really difficult to work with, and they retracted the offer. and she'd left a job of 7 years to take that job. So don't ever, you know, I would imagine right now you probably wouldn't do that, but it does happen. It does happen, unfortunately, at all levels. And we did have somebody who accepted a director level role, and it was, you know, a really sort of 6-figure salary. Went over to meet the team, all went out for dinner. This person started drinking. This person didn't stop drinking. They went to a bar afterwards, and the managing director actually had to say, "Could you please stop drinking? I think you've had enough now." Their response was to go and get 2 shots from the bar and neck them right in front of the MD. Then flirt with the MD's wife right in front of him, then do something that I won't mention because some of you might be underage, quite inappropriate with some of the female members of staff. They tried to shake him off and go to a different bar where he didn't get in because they refused him entry because he was so drunk. It turned out he climbed in through the toilet window, got caught inside and was last seen running down an alleyway in central Dublin, being chased by 2 bouncers. The worst thing was, in the morning, this person could not remember a thing, and the client had to say, "This is a director level person. There's no chance of any respect being given to them now," and lost the job. So yes, even when you have the job, you can still mess it up. I'm sure none of you will do that, but that is my talk about how not to get a job in games. And I hope some of that was useful. I've had to whiz through this. I often do this talk over a whole hour. So yeah, that's it. And this is how to find us. What I need to add to this, we now have an email address, which is specifically for people at talks that want to ask questions but don't want to ask during the talk. And it's hello@opmjobs.com. All right, so that will come into our Callum, and he will work out who is the best person to answer the question. You will 100% get a response. Anybody who emails OPM gets a reply. It's one of our USPs. So if there's anything else you want to know, and there might not be time today, I don't know, if you've got time for a Q&A, then please let us know. Okay, right, I've got to try and work out how I now unshare my screen. Oh my God, I can't get back to it. How do I make it bigger again? Oh no.
I think at the top there should be like a red button or something.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I just okay. Am I no longer sharing screen anyway? Has that now disappeared?
Yeah, it's just a bit. Yeah, I just removed it for you.
Oh, nice one. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank
That
you
was so
very much
interesting,
for that.
Kim.
Yeah, very, very thorough. And I'm quite impressed you got through all of that in half an hour.
I can breathe now.
I really enjoyed those crazy stories. I mean, you like some of this stuff you can't make up, can you?
There are more, and it's interesting. The more, obviously, we're recruiting at the moment for 3 different levels at OPM. So right from people who have been in recruitment for a while to those that have never done it. And some of the things, particularly, it seems to be sometimes the experienced people are actually the ones that don't, they haven't had to look for a job for a while. Yeah, I've certainly seen that over the years where the experienced people rely on being known and the inexperienced people know they're not, so they try harder. Yeah. So yeah, you've got to never stop trying. Cool.
I must say, each story that you said, I was like, oh, shocking. And then the last one just
yeah. No, I actually was doing that talk to a group of students who I discovered afterwards were between 16 and 18 years old. So I've had to change that story to be appropriate for the audience. So yeah. Enough said. There are more, but there's some I absolutely definitely a 25 plus audience. But yeah, it's fun. That's why I'm still here. All these years later, we never know what we're going to get on a daily basis. It's great.
I really think you guys should do like OPM memoirs.
If I wrote the book, nobody would believe it. Nobody would believe it.
Fantastic. We've actually got, I know that we're over time, but we do have a question. So I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So for programming jobs, do you recommend keeping and refactoring old projects prior to applying or removing them altogether from GitHub?
Yeah, GitHub. I think if you can improve them and show, okay, so when I was young, I thought this was it, and now I know better, and this is how I've improved it. That shows a company how well you learn and that you've actually worked it out for yourself. So as a perspective, you've always got to put yourself in the position of the employer. And, the fact that hopefully you'll be an autonomous member of staff. You won't just be relying on other people to show you what to do and train you, 7 days a week. That you've worked it out for yourself. And that was the point about the illustrations, where I often see that people have done illustrations and then years later they're so much better. But what I would say, if you've got something brand new that is a better coded project, make sure that's easily findable. I mean, GitHub does it obviously with a timeline. But you can put an explanation or send an explanation with it to say, this is what this is. This is something I've refactored and it's an old project, but I think I'm now doing it better. And this is something I've just done brand new. So you can tell, I will say there's stats and stories. So there's X number of bits of code, but there's the story behind them as well. So make sure, your CV is your stat, the interview is your story. So your portfolio is your stat, but the shot list, which you must put in there, is the story behind it, is the why behind it. You may have done something that took somebody else a week and you might have done it in 2 days. So you've always got to put that story in and do explain, because particularly now, so many jobs are remote. We've had to make all our OPM jobs remote, our internal ones, because that's just what everybody wants now. So if you can illustrate more that you are independent and you can work on your own, and just thinking of that question alone is brilliant. It really is. So it's just that, that's just even having that thought process tells me that you're somebody who can think independently. And if you're going to sit and work in your house, and I'm never going to actually get you into my studio and and have you with my team and my leads and everything sort of guiding you along the way, that's exactly what I want to hear.
Oh, that's great.
Cool.
Initiative and good thought process.
And if there's anything else you want on the code front, email hello@, and Dan or Shane will answer those questions for you.
Oh, fantastic.
They're really happy to do it. Believe me, it's not a problem.
Well, I've actually put the email address in the chat, guys.
Thank you.
In case you've missed that. But yeah, I think that's it for today and for the conference. Thank you so much, Kim.
Oh, wow.
It was a great ending.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I love doing these talks. It's a bit odd without an audience to get the feedback from. But yes, if anyone watches us on the recording, the hello@opmjobs.com is open all the time. So it's a permanent fixture now, and it is specifically for people that have been to talks and want to ask questions afterwards.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
Well, you mentioned virtual. Hopefully our next one's going to be on site. So
yes, please.
Yeah, I'll definitely bother you.
Yeah, that's fine. You bother me all you like, Kirsty. We're always up for giving something back. That's how we roll.
Oh, thanks again, Kim.
Cool.
Thanks.
Okay. Take care. Good luck, everybody.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Thanks again to Kim. And I think we have missed out on doing this, and we should have done this at the beginning, and that is thank you to our sponsors. So that way, can you see? So Games London, obviously this has been a partner event. Shark Mob and Epic Games, thank you so much, so much. And thank you also to the students. Thank you for joining us. Really hope that you learned a lot. And do keep an eye out on our Twitter, and if you're a member, on the newsletters for future events. As I said, hopefully the next one, and should be, is a face-to-face on site, but we'd still be streaming it anyway for those who can't make it. But yeah, hopefully you have a lovely weekend and see you soon. Bye guys.